For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of rapid fire racing action in the one and only, you know and love it, it is the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship Season 9 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. We're here today to take a look back at all the racing action from round number 5 of 10 in the championship here in the US of A at the Virginia International Raceway. Known as VIR in short, it is a circuit that is highly technical at its core. With a variety of 17 corners and many a winding straight, it's a circuit that many will either love or they'll hate because in terms of the corners, you've got many a sweeper, you've got many a hairpin, and you've also got several corners entwined with the straight, and it all adds up plus the elevation changes to create a circuit where battling is just as difficult as getting a single lap around here absolutely spot on. But those who get it right, they'll be leading the way, and those who do not, they'll find themselves right in the fight as we get ready to go racing here today. Now, as we've mentioned, this is a post-round broadcast. The racing action you're going to be seeing on the screen today is not live. The racing actually occurred earlier this week on Thursday the 24th of July 2025, but we are bringing it you as if it were live this fine Sunday afternoon on Sunday the 27th of July 2025. That means we do ask that in the YouTube chat, because you'll be tuning in right now via the YouTube channel of Evolution Sim Racing. That's at youtube.com. Search for Evolution Sim Racing or ESR. And we do say hello to you guys and girls tuning in, including none other there than DXT Rob, and that is Dexterous Motorsports Rob Mackay, who we're very grateful for the replay. Big thank you to you, Rob. We'll say hello there to Barry Wenman and also to JDM Racing. And if you are there right now and you haven't said hi, don't be shy, feel free to say hi. Well, this is a post-round broadcast, and we do ask in the YouTube chat there are no spoilers, please. The only spoilers we expect to see are the spoilers on the back of our drivers' GT3 machines, because here in the commentary booth we do not know what happens, whether it be in the current practice session that's coming to a close in about 6 minutes time, nor in qualifying or in our two races. What would this be in the return to the 2x30-minute sprint race format for the best part of the next couple of rounds. But in the commentary booth you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX11 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll bring you all your racing action as it unfolds over the entirety of this season for our Premier and Evo classes in Split B. And well, as we head into today, of course, we need to give you a recap of the story so far and what still is lying in wait. And let's get to it. So as we make our way then into round number 5, it is, of course, the Virginia International Raceway playing host, and it's full course for what will be now a sprint triple header. We've had back-to-back feature races at Fuji and Spa-Francorchamps, and they have been dominated by one name in rounds 3 and 4. At the front of the Premier class, Dean Sheasby, the man who proved to be absolutely unstoppable in Japan in round number 3, and at Spa-Francorchamps he did exactly the same in changeable conditions. and ran absolutely rampant with the racing. Can anybody take a torch to him today here in round number 5? Well, that's the question that the Premier class is going to be asking itself. And meanwhile in the Evo class, well, it's a very different story. Because, of course, out of the last 2 rounds, Jordan Maymar has been the main to beat. He has been beaten on circuit. Indeed, he hasn't taken any victory so far this season. But the one thing he can't be beat on is his incredible consistency. And you'll see that more very shortly when we do give you a recap of the championship stands heading into this round. But, of course, we are closing out the first half of the season today at VIR. And after today, on the 31st of July, we head into the Misano Grand Prix circuit in Italy before then to Magny-Cours in France, round number 7, and then going through all the way to the end of August, it'll be Interlagos, Road America, and Silverstone's Grand Prix circuit that bring us to a close on the 28th of August. Goodness me, it's crazy to think we're already a month in. We are halfway through the championship effectively, and time is absolutely flying us on by. But still, that's where the best fun is, of course, because when you're having fun, time absolutely flies. And well, with that, let's come undone and make our way into those championship standings. So we're going to be giving you a recap of the Drivers' Championship standings coming into this round. Unfortunately, we don't have a graphic available for the Teams' Championship, but we will give you an oratory explanation as to where the teams stand coming into this round. And as we can see, after 4 rounds of racing, Dean Sheasby for Moonshiners Racing Club in Premier is your leader on 272 points to 224 of James Bostock. Bostock had been leading going into the previous round. However, a 5th place, whilst a good one, did not compare to the win of Dean Sheasby. And back-to-back feature race wins, the best part of 100 points in each race, means that Sheasby right now is looking to be absolutely unstoppable. He is the king of mixed conditions. James Bostock, however, will look to try and prove otherwise. He tries to chase his first win of the season, and will he be able to do it? That's going to be the big question. He sits in 2nd and a comfortable 46 points ahead of Luke Bailey. But when you look to the 3rd place man from Glass Tech Racing, this is where the intrigue begins in Premier, because you'll notice the top 2, they're worlds apart from the rest of the field, but then 3rd all the way down to 10th place, where it's Luke Bailey all the way through to Andrew Fellows, separated there, if you do the quick mathematics, by only a margin of 53 points, and that seems to be what's brewing in Premier class. Right now, everybody is stumbling their way forward, minus the top 2, but can anybody put a best foot forward today? Because behind Luke Bailey, by only a single point, is Matthias Smolny, the man who we thought would be an early championship favourite based on his performance in round number 1, but it's not really come back ever since then at Daytona. Mark DeVries sitting a further 17 points behind him, 5th place for Sim Racing Team Lowlands. He's continuing to build his form, yet to score a podium, but 2 4th place finishes. John Ludbrook in 6th place on Carmo GP2 Racing's Porsche. Well, right now, mixed fortunes means that he's fallen back outside the top 5, but he'll look to bounce back there as soon as he quickly can. Rowan Powney in 7th for Sim Coach, the smiling Swede there on 150 points, making sure the Corvette 06 isn't just there for show, and indeed delivering some good blows, but he's only 12 points ahead of Nick Stubb for Glass Tech Racing, the Mercedes driver there who's not been on the grid for too many rounds so far. He's only made the feature race rounds in the last 2 weeks, therefore right now he's really the man to watch out for. That 2nd place at Spa-Francorchamps, didn't quite get it to work on strategy versus Dean Sheasby, but could he potentially add a win to his pocket today? If he doesn't, Liam Uniso is only a point behind now. I'll be very keen to try and take that 8th place off of him. And we have Andrew Fellows there completing your top 10 for Flatline Racing. Ross Norsworthy sits in 11th, best of the rest, the first 7 points behind 118, and it's Mark Johnson who rounds off your top 12 Premier drivers. Evo class, meanwhile, the story's a bit different, because as we can see, Jordan Maymar, the leader, but by only 22 points for Simcast Racing Team UK over 9 Pegasus Panteras, Thiago Reza. The battle between the driver in the Ferrari and the BMW driver, where it really has been the story of consistency versus standout performances, with Maymar being Mr. Consistent, Reza having a lot of pace in his pocket if he can deliver it. Denny Plurger, meanwhile, watch out for the MJK Sim Racing driver from the Netherlands. Last time out, picking up his first class win of the season in absolutely emphatic fashion, with that last-minute pole position in qualifying and then converting that into a strategic masterclass at Spa-Francorchamps. Could it be Plurger's time to rise? Well, if so, he's left it late, but he's left it to be the perfect time now to go on the attack. From his 217 points, it's a further 20 to Steve Rubino, the Hobo Racing driver. Had a bit of difficulty last time out, and right now is looking to bounce back in the BMW, but he's ahead of Jonathan Berry by the best part of 12 points there, with a non-finish for the Mission R powered by Maud's driver costing him dear, and it's Grant Miller a further, 16 points behind for Phoenix Racing Red, sitting in 6th. From the Scotsman, it's then to the Britain of Robert Savage and Mission R Esports ahead of Owen Seward, and then we have Ryan Abbott and Austin Graff completing your top 10, noting that Ryan Abbott's there in the BMW, finding some form in the last 2 feature race rounds after non-finishes in the sprint races prior, so therefore Abbott's could be a man to keep an eye on. Barry Webman sits in 11th for Dexterous Motorsport Kumar, and then we have Samuel Clark rounding off your Evo top 12. Well, we'll talk a little bit about the Teams Championship standings when we do head to qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. In the meantime, let's talk a little bit about our circuit for today. This is, of course, the four course layout of the Virginia International Raceway, raced on an annual basis by the likes of IMSA, so GT3 and prototype machines roar around here each and every year. Spanning 3.27 miles or 5.26 kilometres, this circuit, located near the commune of Alton in Halifax County of the US state of Virginia, is a remarkable circuit with lush green fields and its wonderful asphalt. Over the course of its 17 corners, our drivers will find there's a whole mixture of hairpins and sweepers, and there's even a tribute to Laguna Seca's corkscrew chicane known as the roller coaster at turns 14 through to 15. But the key core theme here is the fact that this is one of those circuits where if you run off the circuit, you'll find a lot of grass, and with the grass, you'll find a downhill slope, and very quickly you'll be pulled away from the circuit. So you don't want to run wide at any single point around here. Add to that as well the fact that whilst the road surface is relatively wide, overtaking here can prove very tricky, and overtakes will be relegated typically to turns 1 through to 5, and also Oak Tree at turn number 12, and also the run into roller coaster at turns 14 through to the exit hog pen at turn number 17. But otherwise, not every corner is a viable overtaking position, and particularly if we see two wides coming out Snake at turn 6 and 6A, it's then going to be about who's consumed the most bravery pills as they make the way up the hill through turns 7, 8 and 9 and into South Bend at turn number 10, and will it prove to be a southward turn for one of our drivers? All that and more we will see as they roar their way around the wonderful VIR circuit. But as they get ready to go, well, we are going to be making our way back to circuit side of it very shortly to see how qualifying has got underway, and in fact we can do so, ladies and gentlemen, because here we go then into qualifying, and well, we do have our lone qualifying session, 20 minutes in duration. All drivers out there right now looking to deliver their best possible laps. Now, of course, a lone qualifying session means that nobody is on that circuit with another driver. They are all separated from each other as per usual, and this gives our drivers an ample opportunity to try and get their best possible laps in. In the meantime, whilst we are waiting for those initial laps to come through, well, let's give you a recap of the Teams Championship coming into this round. We don't have a graphic, but we do have the top 10 as listed here in our notes, and we can walk through those for you. And what can we tell you? Well, RDSA Esports, the Split A team, have taken the lead for the first time this season, albeit only by a slender margin over Missionar Esports, who have dropped from first place due to a difficult day at Spa-Francorchamps. Vulcan Motorsports, they sit in third place, having leapt up from 5th to 3rd as a result of their performances in Belgium, a great set of results for the team. And then in 4th place, it's Carme GP2, who've dropped from 3rd to 4th, but they're still well in the hunt there after a reasonable set of results, but Vulcan Motorsports were the greater of the two. Simcoach, they sit in 5th, they're back on the rise because they were 9th going to Belgium, and now they're back in 5th place, ahead of Simcast Racing Team UK, and your top 10 is rounded out by 3M Altitude Esports, Dexterous Motorsport ORA, Moonshiners Racing Club and Glass Tech Racing. And sitting in 11th is Team HSR, who have been in 11th for the last 3 rounds, and they want to break their way back into the top 10 as quickly as they can dream to do so. So that's a quick recap of the Team's Championship standings, and we will also give you an update on the provisional standings after all the racing is complete today. Given the fact we won't be presenting post-round interviews because it has been the best part of 72 hours since the racing occurred, and therefore I can imagine that most of our drivers' memories will not be as fresh as they could be, but we will be back to normal full service as of next Thursday with round number 6. You'll have to forgive us, unfortunately. We were planning to do this post-round broadcast on Friday early this week, but due to a bit of what was divine intervention, or in other words, my car broke down the side of the motorway 100 miles from home, and it took the best part of 12 hours to get home from that point. Well, unfortunately, we couldn't quite bring that broadcast, but we appreciate your understanding. Enough about me and my difficulties. Let's focus on our heroes on screen today. The drivers, they are the ones who make this special here at Evolution Sim Racing, and we're right now all on their first flying laps, and we will see who will put those laps in very shortly as they power their way on around. But a huge thank you to all the drivers who submitted replays, including Rob McCoy, and also, if my memory serves me correctly, I'm just trying to identify the other driver who did share a replay. I also had one offered by Robin Pownier, but we did have quite a few replays put forward from our different drivers in order to make sure this broadcast could take place, and to them we are absolutely grateful as they roll their way around. And Matt Stace was the other driver who did put forward a replay. We really did appreciate that. Well, here we go. There's first lap start to come on the board, and it's Menno Blum who puts a high time in, a 45.585, but immediately Adam Baker, well, he goes a whole almost second faster by comparison. We are expecting low 44s to really be the target time around here as those laps coming in, particularly from our premier drivers, but this circuit, a very tricky one to get absolutely right. But what will be the theme then of today? Well, we've got two 30-minute sprint races. We are not in a feature race format at this time. What that does mean is that qualifying is going to take a bit of greater significance compared to our previous 2 rounds, because you haven't got as much time over the race distance to make up where you've lost out in qualifying. Ergo, the key point being here around the fact you want to be as close as possible towards the front of your respective class, if not overall. We have alluded to the fact that overtaking is tricky around here. It's not impossible. However, one of the problems with overtaking at VIR is that when you do go too wide into any of the given corners around here that are viable overtaking spots, you are going to cost yourself and your rival a lot of time, and you will, as a result, lose the car that's further afield up the road. So therefore, overtakes, you really need to try and relegate them to the straights around here, of which you do have a long back straight and also a long start-finish straight, and you also do have the long run from Snake into South Bend at turn 6 through to turn 10. However, overtaking there, of course, is with its risks of going through a set of left and to right sequences where you do have a narrowing of the apex as you roll the way round, as we'll see Grant Miller give a demonstration very shortly as he comes through the Snake and now makes his way upwards towards South Bend through the gentle elevation rise. But in fact, he cruise along there a little bit, and I believe Grant Miller might have backed off the throttle, in fact, in his McLaren, and it does seem as though they're right now taking a little bit easier. It will build up some speed in short. I think Miller there just getting himself a little bit warmed up in regards to tyre temperatures and just getting a feel for where the car is. And of course, they do have 10 flying laps in this qualifying session of 20 minutes, whichever expires first. The number of laps available. Alternatively, what is the time? Well, that's the opportunity. So there is plenty of time to try and get those tyres up to ample temperature to go on the attack. As they roar the way and around, we do say hello there to Berry Racing, that's Jonathan Berry out there, and also to Noobish, and that is Ryan Abbots, and also JDM Racing clarifying that is none other than your Evo Championship leader at this time, and that is Jordan Maymar. I hope you're all doing well, guys, and I hope you're all having a great weekend as well, as we do see the lap times now starting to become a little bit more realistic for our drivers. Menno Blom has resurged his way to the front of the field, 44.6. One thing we should point out as well is if there are any off-tracks included in these laps our drivers been able to do, they are not discounted for the purposes of this replay file that we're using for this broadcast. So it may mean that we will see some drives that shuffle around when we do go to the grid for our first race of the day. So we're just going to point that out, that all the laps will be validated after qualifying. So we may see some drivers that drop out of glory, alternatively some drivers suddenly rise all the way up the ranks. But talking a little bit about the Evo class, well, the man who definitely needed a good qualifying lap here today, he's wearing a very new livery there, I must say, for the Hobo Racing BMW M4. That is Steve Rubino, as he takes a trip in towards Oak Tree Bend, named after, of course, the infamous oak tree that was cut down about 4 years ago, if my memory serves correctly, but the name is still stuck, with the fact there was an oak tree right on the exit of the corner, not in the tarmac, of course, but just on the outside there, but it was cut down due to the age of the tree, and also the fact that it was at risk of potentially falling on the circuit one day, and also blocking the visibility of certain spectators. But Rubino right now making his way onwards, but as he does, Ryan Abbots, fellow BMW M4 driver, says, hold on Steve, I want to take pole position here in the Evo class. So both of them looking quite quick out there, but no Evo driver to really land themselves inside the overall top 10 at this time, as Denny Plurger goes fastest, and in fact Jonathan Berry's just gone absolutely ludicrously fast. He's moved his way up to 4th place. He's making me mark my words before they even come out my mouth. Well, how about that? He's probably listening in. But as he roars his way through turn number 3 through NASCAR Bend, all right, now moved up to 4th, but we have seen Pioneer, Smolny and Kenyon all move up to 4th, 5th and 6th, so Berry now relegated to 7th. But the point is here, we have seen some standout qualifying performances from our different Evo drivers over the course of the season, Jonathan Berry being one of the names up there, and right now that Mercedes AMG 2020, he's making all 8 cylinders and 6.3 litres of fuel injection absolutely work its dream as he roars his way upwards there. But very shortly we'll get an onboard lap with one of our drivers to give you an idea of what it's like to put a lap in here at VIR. And in fact, we might be able to get an onboard lap here with what was usually the Z-Axis SimSport driver from Season 8, but now Axis SimSport Ice. It's going to be none other than Andrew Montaigne who takes us around for a flying lap in his Acura NSX Evo. So making his way up towards turn number 1, lets the car creep over to the left-hand side and onto the brakes there at the 2 board, representing 200, or what would be 100 yards, as he makes his way all the way through the opening corner. A long exit there, as he now keeps it over to the right to initially go for the curvature of turn number 2. Now straighten the steering wheel and back onto the brakes for turn number 3. Through NASCAR Bend he goes, and as he does, picks up the speed there, uses the runoff area to his available advantage, and through turn number 4, the left hook before the right-hand sweeper at turn number 5. And here it's about patience. Let the car come out, feed the throttle in, and now into the snake at turn 6 and 6A, the right into left, and flat out all the way he goes now onwards towards South Bend. Now it's a brief breather at this point, but what you'll notice is this is a straight in all but its straightness, as he'll now go through turns 7, 8, 9, left into right, and then into left again, and then another right-hander where he makes his way onto the brakes here, chuck the weight of the car forward onto the nose, and through South Bend down to 5th gear, and now bringing the car over to the left-hand side and onto the brakes hard here, trail braking for the apex at turn 11. Does he get stopped in time? Yes, he does for Oak Tree Corner at turn number 12, and now full throttle all the way onto the back straight here, and this is a much straighter straight by comparison. But you'll notice here it's all about the depressions and the rise. It's completely unsighted as you make your way out towards roller coaster corner, and that's why it's considered to be the Virginian equivalent of the corkscrew in California. As he makes his way over to the right hand side here to open up turn number 13, it'll be left into right as he goes onto the brakes here, and now down to second gear through the right hander and through the fall of the roller coaster through 15, and now bring the car out to the outside to set himself up going to hog pen corner turn 16 and 17, left into right here, hard on the brakes, snaps it to the apex and back on the throttle immediately, carry all the momentum down to the lowest point of the circuit and onwards towards the start finish straight here. A lovely lap from Andre Montaigne, and what's it going to be this time around? We will see. He's currently 32nd overall, and what is the Premier driver going to do here? He moves all the way up to 24th on a 45.761. A lovely lap there from our driver in the number 115, and he'll be hoping he can do that even more now as qualifying heads into its second half. But we're on his way around. Let's take a look at those class positions. And as we can see, well, Jonathan Berry's provisional pole lap currently stands in the Evo class by only 600ths over Barry Wenman, and Wenman, they're going very quick indeed as his livery decides to pop on the car, and Wenman right now looking good in the number 56, and this could already be the story of Berry versus Wenman with a further 2.5 tenths to Ryan Abbott, who sits, well, he's in third in Evo, but in terms of overall positions, there's the best part of 6 places between the two of them, and in between, of course, a whole medley of Premier drivers. In the Premier class, well, our top class, it's a 44.580 still for Menno Blum, head of Nick Stubb. Nick Stubb right now, oh goodness me, that was a bit of a jink on the front of the car there. I wonder where he's battling with some understeer in that Mercedes. It does have quite a bit of understeer at higher speeds. Well, he's going to be looking to dial that out as much as he possibly can, or was that just a wobble, perhaps a little bit of oversteer? Now, this car's normally very stable the higher the speed it goes. It's normally the low-speed corners where it does have an issue, the Mercedes, particularly in second gear is where there's a lot of power going through the rear wheels, and it normally kicks around because you've got a lot of weight in front of the driver in the Mercedes. And a little known fact, by the way, you're going to be seeing a very equivalent car of the Mercedes AMG in the real-life racing scene, and potentially on iRacing next year, because with Lexus/Toyota bringing out their new GT3, well, if you didn't know this, it's all based on this machine, the Mercedes AMG 2020, so much so that Toyota actually, in I believe GT World Challenge Asia, under their Gazoo racing outfit, actually ran one of these as a test car to see what its strengths and weaknesses were in order to then build what we believe is going to be known as the LFR GT3 for next year. So a little fact there if you want to take that to the pub quiz trivia. But as he rolls his way out there, taking a bit of grass with him, so a bit of a rallycross line. I think Stubb there just making a bit of a mistake, and we will see what he's going to be able to do next time he goes on around. But as he does so, well, meanwhile, where are the surprises out there? Well, another surprise, and not a good one to be certain. Tiago Reza, your second place Evo Championship driver, 7th at the moment, and 5 tenths off a 6th place driver, Steve Rubino. Reza really has seemed to struggle since the arrival at Spa-Francorchamps. Fuji, it was all looking good. However, since Spa, things are not looking to be clicking together at the moment. Now, a lot of drivers who we've spoken to across our classes, where it's Evo Premier, always say the same thing, which is, I struggle in qualifying, I'm better in the race. However, I think if everyone struggles in qualifying, then nobody technically struggles in qualifying, if you get my drift, just for the simple reason everyone will be having that difficulty. But right now, this does seem to be a bit of an uphill battle for our number 93 driver, and hopefully we'll get to see him back on top form sooner rather than later, because he definitely has been one of the standout stars so far this season, but does not improve this time around. And with 7 minutes left on the clock, I think time is starting to run out a little bit for our drivers out there, and some pressure is starting to build. As we say hello there to Grant Miller in the YouTube channel. I hope you're doing well, Grant. But as I drive all the way on around here, well, we do have, of course, a bit further down some other surprises, and, well, those do include Matthew Hunter, who's a long way down the order, the Evo class Ferrari 296 driver, all the way down in 41st overall, 16th place in Evo, and it is not looking to be a happy qualifying session for the Simcast Racing Team UK driver at this time. And, well, normally he's qualified a bit better than this in previous rounds, but then again, different circuits, different strokes for different folks, as they say, and right now VIR definitely proving to be a bit of a Marmite circuit out there for some of our faster drivers, but that's why we visit so many different circuits in each and every season, because if we visited circuits of a similar type, then you wouldn't see the mixing of the grid. But you're definitely seeing that here today, and also we are waiting to see where Blue Sky Esports' Stuart Rice can pick himself up, because he's currently all the way down in 44th place. Now, well, oh, goodness me, that's a big snap loose there coming through South Bend, and, well, the Lamborghini goes around, and it completes its pirouette and lands safely back on the tarmac there. Well, thankfully, that did not go further into the grass, as otherwise I think we would have been needing a tractor to pull it out, but the 142 Lamborghini Huracan, if those tyres were not hot before the spin, they're now going to be absolutely excruciatingly hot. Other surprises out there. Rob Smith, well, he's in the pit lane right now. He's not permitted to partake in this qualifying session due to a qualifying ban picked up from penalty points that have accumulated over the last 4 rounds. And Dean Sheasby, not in qualifying at the moment. The car went out for half a lap and it's come back to the pits. They've got a technical issue with the Premier Championship leaders BMW, and if so, if he's got to start from the back of the field today, that is going to be a huge hammer blow and what has been really a runaway form of momentum over the last couple of rounds. We'll wait to see if he can get back out there, but right now the garage is shut from what I can see out my commentary booth window. They are not moving the Sheasby mobile around at all. And that's going to definitely open things up in the Premier Championship. Of course, our drivers do get 1 drop score over the entirety of the season, but you don't want to be forced to take that drop score where you can help it. Ideally, what you want to do is you want to have it on reserve, so that way, as the season goes on, you naturally can sign around as a drop score. However, some improvements going on further down the field. James Bostock, your second place man in the Premier Championship, he's down in 19th on a 45.343 there. Bostock struggling as well in the Porsche 992. We would expect the Porsches to go quite well here at VIR, given the number of late apex corners and the fact that the Porsche is the cornering master, given the mantra of Porsche and the rear engine rear wheel drive drivetrain. However, it does seem to be a circuit that's catching him out there as he takes a very early apex at turn number 5 and almost ejects himself onto the exit of 5A and into the grass. But as he makes his way onwards, a lot of drivers seemingly struggling around here. As one driver who's not, and a name we haven't seen towards the top for some sizable time, Hussein Serkadesla. Well, we can see here the Suma GP2 driver in the McLaren 720S Evo up to 3rd here and pushing onwards, and he's looking quite good as he makes his way on up towards turn 7, 8 and 9. And while we do have 4 different manufacturers in the top 4 spots overall so far, we've got a Porsche on pole with Minno Bloem, with Nick Stubb in the Mercedes in 2nd, then Serkadesla here in 3rd in the McLaren, and a Ferrari of Wesley Van Rens in 4th. And in fact, Jonathan Berry suddenly puts himself up the order and says, well, how about I break it up and decide to introduce a bit of a repetition? He jumps up to 3rd there on an absolutely staggering 44.73. My good lord, if that lap stands, which I suspect it will, the number 96 driver here has suddenly just put the qualifying session to rest. He parks up immediately. He's done everything he thinks he needs to do. That is confidence there when he parks up coming out of NASCAR Bend. Wesley Van Rens, meanwhile, what I was going to say, it's great to see him up here as well, because we haven't seen Wesley Van Rens for 9 Pegasus Pantera up towards the front of the field for some time. Remember, your Evo champion from Season 8, promoted to Premier, as is the default nature of things, but he's really been battling into the bottom end of the top 15 of Premier over the first 4 rounds of the season. Here in round number 5, he seems to have found his form at long last, and it's great to have him up there as we bring you the class qualifying positions as they currently stand. Still more to come from all the drivers as they roar the way around, and right now Wesley Van Rens, well, he's looking to be on high tide form, but powering his way onwards here. And as he does so, we look a little bit further down the order to 16th place man, Austin Graf, and the Ferrari 296, so from one Ferrari to another. But what can we tell you here about Mr. Graf? Well, the Axis Sports ICE driver, currently 4th place of our Evo drivers, and will runs very wide there coming out of turn number 5. And I think that's going to be his qualifying session done and dusted. That is going to be a tow to the pits. And, well, for Graf, I think he'll be kicking himself on that one because he wasn't a personal best in Sector 1 after he made that error. And I would imagine that Ryan is going to be thinking, okay, that's qualifying complete for me. There's no further we can go. But as Klaas Vellen makes his way onwards, well, he's currently in 18th overall or 14th in Premier. And, well, for Vellen, he needs to find a little bit of time out there. He's only 23 thousandths off of Luke Bailey's time, who's just up the road from him, the 118. But as we can see, the Penguin Racing Machine, and, well, all the penguins on the side, they're quite an adorable livery. Although I must admit, the quartet of penguins on the side, that is giving me a vibe of Madagascar penguins. But I presume they've had to change the art style for copyright reasons. Well, right now, Klaas Vellen making his way onwards here and absolutely looking in fine form as he normally does. He's 15th in the Premier class, heading up towards turn number 1, but he improves to 12th on a 45.8057. So some pace still to be found, but Klaas Vellen is finding it, and now on to his final qualifying lap. But with this qualifying session coming to a close, I don't know if he's going to be able to sneak that lap in at all. He will be, I think he's 2 seconds behind the clock at the moment. He might squeeze it in if he has a monster of a lap. But otherwise, that might be it. Well, in fact, that's going to be it now as Vellen decides to take a bit of an excursion at NASCAR Bend. And if you're wondering why turn number 3 is called NASCAR Bend, it's because it has been a corner. When NASCAR has raced here over multiple decades, it's been the corner that's caught out more NASCAR champions than any other corner they've visited on a non-oval circuit. And, well, the corner could be referred to by some other, perhaps less polite names. Indeed, many a corner here at VIR does have a less polite name. I'm not going to use those on this broadcast because I want to keep it sub-18 rated. However, NASCAR Bend at turn number 3 has been to the detriment of many a NASCAR champion. I do believe including Dale Earnhardt, for example, where it's seen that their race end up in the wall. But hopefully it won't be that way for our drivers today, as we see Robin Aston giving it one last flick of the wrist here as he roars his way in towards Oak Tree Bend. Absolutely attacking the circuit, as everybody is, and right now hoping that with 40 seconds to go, he can move his way a little bit further up from currently 10th place on the overall starting order. Remember, the grid for race number 1 is set based on qualifying. The grid for race number 2 is a top 15 inversion of the results from race number 1, and we'll be able to walk you through both those grids as the racing goes on today. But as Robin Aston makes his way onwards here, well, 20 seconds left on the clock. I don't think he's going to get this lap in time. It's going to be very close, and in the end, he makes a mistake there of the roller coaster and decides, you know what, I'm just going to crawl back onto the circuit. He knows that he's fluffed the corner there. Meanwhile, Mark Johnson, with 6 seconds left on the clock, crossed the line. He was 16th going onto that lap. He stays at 16th. He doesn't find any more time. That is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for us to head to the grid. And as all our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for our first race today. Well, in a surprise turn of fortune, we have a Corvette on pole. I didn't quite spot that. Robin Pawnee has taken pole position overall in Premier for SimCoach, his first pole position of the season. Congratulations to him. What a brilliant job from the Swedish driver. From the 1-2-3, it's then to the 1-2-2, Amino Blom, who starts second, only what was in the end 55 thousandths behind for Sim Racing Team Lowlands. And then we'll have, starting in third place, Nick Starr for Glass Tech Racing, the Dutchman there will be looking to try and find fine form today, and he'll be joined on the second row of the grid by your Evo pole sitter, Jonathan Berry for Mission R powered by Maud, and what a lap from him to be only 1.6 tenths off the overall pole position. Hussein Sarkadesla starts in 5th for Suma GP2 Racing, and from the Turkish driver, it will then be the Dutchman of Wesley Van Rens for 9 Pegasus Pantera. Adam Baker starts 7th for LS Racing. Definitely has been an interesting season so far for Adam Baker. He's been the driver who's qualified very well at a lot of circuits, but the results have not followed him with his qualifying performances. However, he'll be looking to try and arrest the rock today, as will Martin Kenyon in the Audi R8 LMS Evo 2 for Axis Simsport Ice. Then we do have, starting 9th, George Stone for Mission R powered by Maud, ahead of Robin Aston for Carme GP2 Racing. He completes your top 10. In 11th is John Ludbrook for Carme GP2 Racing, ahead of Matthias Smolny for Mission R Esports. And then behind them, we will have the combination of Klaas Vellen for Penguin Racing Endeavours, ahead of your second place Evo driver on this grid, Steve Rubino for Hobo Racing. We then have on row number 8, it is going to be Barry Wenman for Dexterous Motorsports Quamex, ahead of Mark Johnson for Axis Simsport Ice, with Andre Montine starting 17th behind his teammate, but ahead of Jordan Maymar for Simcast Racing Team UK. And, well, I'm going to have a word with Jordan after the racing today, because if he carries this on, he's going to be called Mr. 4th Place, because he's making a habit of finishing 4th and also qualifying 4th in a lot of races, if my memory and the results in my mind are correct. But still, I'm sure I can have that chat with him afterwards, and I'm sure he'll be thinking to himself, you know what, I need to move towards pole position where I can. However, that aside, starting 19th is going to be Austin Graff for Axis Simsport Ice, ahead of Luke Bailey for Glass Tech Racing, and that is how your top 20 starts. We then come to outside the top 20, and as we do, starting 21st, Liam Yaniso, the privateer, ahead of James Bostock for Carme GP2 Racing. From the difficulties of Bostock, it's then also the brilliance of Ryan Abbots for Team Nubish. He starts 23rd, or what equates to 6th place in the Evo class, and he's quite clear of the rest of the Evo class, because between him and the rest of the Evo drivers, he's got firstly Scott Kostridge for Carme GP2 Racing. Then in 25th, it's Mark De Vries for Sim Racing Team Lowlands, and completing the Premier Pack there, it's Ross Norsworthy for Simcast Racing Team UK, 26th. And then 27th, starting off your 14th row, it's Tiago Reza, who again has had some difficulty in qualifying for 9 Pegasus Pantera. Grant Miller joins him on the 14th row for Phoenix Racing Red, and then from the Scotsman, it'll be the Briton of Andrew Fellows for Flatline Racing, and Denny Plöger, the hero of Spa-Francorchamps, where he's gone from heroes to zero today. He'll fill for MJK Sim Racing, and starting 30th, or what equates to 9th place in Evo class, he's got a lot of work to do. Daniel Poole is just behind in there for Flatline Racing, starting 31st, ahead of Rob Mackay for Dexterous Motorsports MX. And then we have Simon Hunt, 33rd, ahead of Oliver Forsstrom. The two Quatermass Motorsport drivers line up together on that 17th row. On row number 18, the Quatermass Motorsport thing continues for Andy Gell. We have Mission R Esports' Robert Savage starting at 36th. We then have 37th, Matt Stays for Flatline Racing, ahead of Stuart Rice for Blue Sky Esports. And then we have completing your top 40, Pete Piver for LS Racing, and James Pallett for Racing League Hub. Outside the top 40, we've still got a few more rows to go. Let's not forget about them. Starting 41st, it's Eddie Theobald, the privateer, ahead of Matthew Hunter for Simcast Racing Team UK, with Alex Boniface starting 43rd for Dexterous Motorsports MX, ahead of Eduardo Andino for LS Racing, and it's Rachel Hugh for Blue Sky Esports, ahead of Sammy Ariba for Mission R, with row number 24 going to James Fraser for Moonshiners Racing Club, and Rob Smith, the qualifying band driver, starting 48th. And then last but not least, from the very back of the field, but he hasn't made his way to the grid, Dean Sheasby for Moonshiners Racing Club. And well, a big shout out to Dean Sheasby, because after finishing his race at Spa-Francorchamps and taking his second win of the season over one in the Premier Class, well, I believe his wife did give birth pretty much shortly after the race. And well, a huge shout out to Dean and his missus and the arrival of their new child, unless I'm mistaken. And we're very happy to hear that good news for the team, and in particular for Dean. He'll be absolutely smiling about that one, and well, we wish him all the best that he carries his way onwards going into future rounds. But definitely a new arrival, and what a way to cap off a brilliant result at Spa-Francorchamps by suddenly having a little youngster come into the fray of the family. And we'll hope the youngster, wife and Dean are all doing okay. I'm sure they are. We look forward to plenty more racing between them all as we make our way into this round. But we've got a bit of time before we do make our way onto what will be at the start-finish line. And as we do, all the drivers just getting themselves set right now. But rest assured, ladies and gentlemen, very soon it'll be Robin Pownier who takes us to Green Flag Racing. And when he does so, it'll be 30 minutes of racing action for the first of our 2 races here at the VIR circuit in the US state of Virginia. And just to confirm, ladies and gentlemen, in fact, it is his 3rd child, Dean Sheasby. So congratulations, Dean, on the arrival of his 3rd child there. I didn't want to quite say it was the 3rd one, so I double-checked. But with that in mind, so Dean not on the grid for this one, but still he'll be watching on. And it's time for us to go Green Flag Racing. And it's lights out and away we go for our first of 2 races here today at VIR as Robin Powner sets the pace away, and as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, Menno Blom did not have a slow start, and Blom's right there with him as they go through turn number 1. It's side by side every step of the way as they make the way around, but Blom has to back off, and Nick Stubbs up the inside. Stubb there with a smooth move, and now can he make it count as they roar the way into the corners? We will see as they go through. Stubb gets it wrong under braking. Stubb loses the rear of the car, it snaps loose, just avoids the tyre barrier, and well, Stubb there off the road. He ejects himself from the race. We'll be coming back shortly, surely, as meanwhile, it's going a bit tight there for many of our other drivers coming into left hook bend, including for back Luke Bailey, who's on a mission to try and break through. But Liam Yaniso right on his inside here, and Yaniso trying to assert dominance. They roar the way through the snake, but right now both drivers absolutely equally matched here as they make the way up towards turns 7, 8 and 9. But Yaniso, with the power of the BMW, finally finds his way through. Onwards they go, then as they do, we'll further back Mark De Vries trying to keep Targa Reza behind, but also trying to make some pressure on Scott Kostrich here, and it's not going either way at the moment, and Mark De Vries has to back off. But we also do see Rob Mackay there under pressure as that's going to be Stubb looking up the inside into South Bend. Oh goodness me, that's tight, and Mackay's not backing out yet. Stubb immediately tries to go back on the resurgence, and in towards turns 11 and 12 they go, and Mackay's still there. Stubb right now, he's trying to make amends for his mistake, but coming out of the hairpin, well, he's going to run wide there. Mackay on the inside on the exit, it's going to lose a lot of traction, and it's going to be equal between them as Robert Savage watches behind. But heading onwards right now, it's definitely been a bit of a frustrating start for Nick Stubb, but for other drivers, it's been a much more positive start by comparison here as they make the way over the crest, and then up they go even more so into roller coaster, and Stubb has to back off there. He hasn't got the straight line speed versus Mackay's McLaren. But from them going in towards roller coaster, a bit of a tap to the rear there on what Stubbs' car from none other than Robert Savage. Albeit I think they'll get away with that one. Well, after one lap of racing, Robin Pownier leads, but for how long here? Because here comes Menno Blom looking around the outside onto lap number 2. 2 wide they come into the opening corner. Blom gets ahead. Does he get it stopped in time? He does. But Pownier's still there. That Corvette put it on pole, but right now in pole position to take lead this race is Menno Blom. He's on the inside of 2, and we have a change of lead. Menno Blom takes the lead back here as they roar the way through 3 and in towards 4. And right now the Sim Racing Team Lowlands driver versus the Sim Coach machine, where you can see now Sarah Cadesla is right behind and is looking to also get involved. Jonathan Berry sits in 4th. He is your Evo leader, and as he roars one out there, he's got Adam Baker for close company, head of Wesley Van Rens, George Stone, Martin Kenyon, Robin Aston, John Lubrett. That's your top 10, with Barry Wenman Second place in Evo, he's gained 1 place in class ahead of Steve Rubino, and he's gained 4 overall. Wemman's had an absolutely lightning start here at VIR as he continues onwards, and the whole field now starts to settle down. But the problem is for Wemman, he wants to try and gain some more places, and John Ludbrook will be the man he wants to try and poke his way past sooner rather than later. But can he do so? That's the question. Well, not at that distance into Oak Tree, he won't, but to be fair, that's the natural concertina effect. Looking a bit further back, we're in American soil. Let's look to an American Mustang machine, and this is Pete Piver, who right now trying to muscle his way on around there with a 5-litre V8. And well, as he comes in towards turn number 11, what's he going to find? What he's going to find there is a bit of run deep from Simon Hunt, and he brings it back together just about as it's a staggered 3 wide there, and Nick Stubb going up the inside of Rob Mackay, who ran a bit deep coming out of Oak Tree Bend as they go past what is the southern pit lane, and onwards they'll come. Andy Chell now looking for a move here on Mackay. He's trying to move his way up into the oval place of 31st, but he won't be in the same time, looking to try and break away from Robert Savage, the Evo driver behind him, and it's up between Chell and Mackay. Squeeze each other to the apex, and in there Chell gets them through. A brilliant job there from the Quatermass Motorsport driver, and that's an important overtake because it means now he can drop Robert Savage, who's stuck behind Mackay for a little bit longer. But as the drivers come on around to complete this lap, well, looking from it towards the back end of the field, in towards the mid-pack, Liam Yaniso right now trying to keep Luke Bailey at bay as James Bostock picking his way through the field. And Bostock right now had a dismal qualifying session, but one thing to note is he's having a much stronger race session up the inside there. Now that's opportunism. Bostock simply says to Austin Graff, look, you can't turn in because I'm suddenly here. Yaniso goes deep. Bostock's going to take 2. Is he going to take 3 here? We're about to find out. No, he's not going through NASCAR Bend. He's going to be made to wait his turn, and will Bostock there enjoying the fight, but Austin Graff coming back at him as well, and the Evo driver here really trying to break away right now as Ryan Abbott's there has a big fishtail coming out of turn number 4, and well, the 6th place Evo driver right now trying to keep Luke Bailey and Ross Norsworthy behind as he oversteps his mark coming through Snake Bend, and as the fight even more oversteered there, that BMW is not looking to be straight right now, and well, he's trying to point it straight, but I think the rear end of that car is very loose as he's creating a long traffic jam of cars behind that is accumulated with their Daniel Paul and Denny Plogers. We're missing the front bumper, and Andrew Fellows' McLaren a little bit further in the picture for Lightline Racing, but as they all come on through the left-hander, in fact that's not Fellows' car, that's Scott Kostrich that's missing the front bumper. We're coming in towards Oak Tree Hairpin at this point. Well, all these drivers so close together right now, but nobody able to make a move. But looking inside the top 10 here, we can see Wesley Van Rens running in 6th place at the moment under pressure from George Stone, and this is for position in the Premier Class. In the end there, Will Stone backs off entirely. No, he's not going to be able to go for the move, and he's just going to nestle himself in nice and quietly, but roaring the way down through the left-hander in towards the right. Well, we do have some replays to take a look at with regards to the race start, and in particular what happened to Nick Stubb at that start, because he did have the moment where he got ejected out sideways at the very start of the race. We'll get a replay of that very shortly, I believe, as to what happened to Nick Stubb. But right now we stay with all the racing that's out there on circuit this time. Brilliant racing, no doubt about it, from all drivers here as they roll the way on through. And in fact, Stone this time trying to go around the outside of Van Rens through turn number 1. And as he does so for the right in towards the left, well, Stone is there this time. Surely he's going to make this move stick because Van Rens on that outside, unless he can get the cut back here from NASCAR, that's not going to work out. And indeed, it's an insufficient defence, and George Stone moves up into 6th place. A lovely commitment there from the Mission R driver, and Martin Kenya now watches on and thinks, how can I potentially get involved? Well, he's going to need to get a little bit closer in that Audi. But from them, we look a bit further back because there's plenty of battling going on inside the top 10 in the Evo class. That is Daniel Paul fighting his way with Nick Stubb and Denny Ploger, and will Denny Ploger getting through, and Stubb seeing the door was open and also using it as an opportunity to make an overall position. But Denny Ploger, after a dismal qualifying session, making progress. Your winner at Spa-Francorchamps only a week ago, and well, right now the Dutchman here trying to pick up the pieces from what was left behind. But of course there'll be 2 opportunities here. You've got races 1 and 2, but race number 1 definitely a bit more of an investigation race, whereas race number 2 I can imagine he'll be firing on all 6 cylinders in the Porsche 992 GT3 machine. But as they all come over the ridge and into the next couple of corners, a big shout out as well to Rob Smith, who started from practically the back of the field, minus Dean Sheasby, didn't make it to the grid. There's a lot of smoke going up there. Hold up a second, is that Andrew Fellows has gone round? Yes, it is. Andrew Fellows has parked himself up there on the exit of Oak Tree Hairpin, and well, a bit of contact there. That was Eduardo Andino giving him a little bit of an elbow, and I think Fellows won't be too happy about that. But what I was about to say is the fact that Rob Smith, who started from the very back of the field due to the qualifying ban, he's already up into 38th place, 10 places gained, and still making progress here. Good on Rob. He's got a bit more time to go and plenty of places to potentially make in the way. As he looks to chase them down, well, we need to take a look back at what happened to Nick Stubb right at the start of the race. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here is a replay of what happened to Nick Stubb. Now, this was right at the beginning. Do we get a camera angle here to suggest what happened to Stubb? Was there contact? As he made his way, no, just ran out wide and lost the rear of the car. So Stubb there with an uncharacteristic error and just snapping loose under rotation. Well, goodness me, that could have been far, far worse. He could have gone to the barrier, not quite, but for Nick Stubb, he'll be absolutely fuming with that one. We also had on lap number 1, this for James Bostock. This is where it went wrong for the Ferrari driver. 3 wide into turn number 1 and got turned across the front there of one driver and then got turned even more. I think that's Sammy Ariba in the end had to come to a stop in the BMW M4 as much. Oh, no, Ariba was going around the outside there. I think that was Eddie Theobald, in fact, in the BMW who got caught up, and then Ariba was just trying to go around, but James Bostock will not be too happy about that one, and Rob Smith having to put on the brakes very quickly there after emerging from the pit lane to find the scene of a bit of carnage. But from all them recovering, we then did have this only moments ago for Andrew Fellows, and this was the drama on lap number 4, Oak Tree. Now, at the time, he was battling there with one of the 9 Pegasus Pantera cars, and he went a bit deep into the corner, overcooked it through turn 11, and the rear of the car came loose there with the rear left tyre being on the grass, and in the end having to reverse it off the circuit. So that was our drama on the opening few laps. Let's head back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen. And as we do, plenty more to come, no doubt about it, from all the drivers here as they all push onwards. But who is going to be leading the way? Oh, that's going to be the big question on the mind. Now, we do apologise for the fact the timer in the top left corner of your screen will have reset itself to what would be your starting 30 minutes. So therefore, we are now going to be keeping you updated as to how many laps we are expecting still to go, because the timer will be inaccurate. It is something that can happen every so often, that we can have a bit of a breakage with regard to, with regard to our timer, but still, we are expecting a grand total of 17 laps here in both races today, so therefore, that's what we'll keep you abreast of. We are currently on what looks to be then none other than lap number 6 and gradually building them up. But Menno Blom is running away at the very front of the field right now and is looking to be on fine form here with a 2-second advantage over Robin Balnier, and Hussein Sarkadesla completes your top 3 of Premier drivers overall as well, with then Jonathan Berry, your leading Evo driver, in 4th place. But we've had a relatively clean opening couple of laps, and well done to all the drivers thus far. Looking a bit further back, Martin Kenyon now starting to get on the pounce as he looks to chase after George Stone. We ride on board here with the Access Sport Ice Audi driver, and in towards turn number 10 he goes. But as he does so, well, right now, what can we expect here for Martin Kenyon? Well, I think the problem he's got is the classic problem with the Audi, and that is it's a very powerful car, but it's also a very unstable car. And the problem about it is the closer and closer he gets to the back of George Stone's Porsche, he'll find there's more and more dirty air going over the front of his car, and gradually the aero balance of his Audi becomes very different from what he expects in clear air, and it makes the rear of the car even more unsteady. So as he continues to go all the way on in, and up towards what will be at the left and to right here, turns 13 and 14. Well, right now he's staying close, but not quite close enough. Now, we have also noticed off camera that we have lost Barry Wenman from the Evo class. He's dropped all the way from 2nd place in the class all the way down to 19th place, and what is 46th overall from being just at the bottom end of the top 10. And he just confirmed to us in the YouTube chat that he did have to serve a 41-second stop and go for not completing a slowdown that he'd picked up earlier on in the race. So that's why we have lost Barry Wenman all the way down the bottom of the order, and that's a bit of a heartbreak there. And thank you, Barry, for filling us in. We do appreciate that. And well, of course, if there are any tidbits you can fill us in after it's happened, if you're one of the drivers who participates in the race, we're always grateful for that, and a little bit of information always goes a long way. As right now, a cool and calm, collected head for Martin Kenyon is definitely going to go a long way today as well. But as we come away from the onboard with him, we look back to Stuart Rice, who looks one way, then the other. He's going to go for the move here on Pete Piper into turn 1. They may be fighting over 22nd in Premier, but to them, this feels like they're battling for points. And as they come roaring out of turn number 1, well, I think Rice there really trying to get into Piper's head, but Piper having none of it there and just taking his natural line in that Ford Mustang. And both of these drivers here enjoying a good little bit of battling. And further back, Alex Boniface up the inside there, James Fraser. That's for 15th in Evo class. So they come through turn number 1. The McLaren driver, they're going for a classic move, and James Fraser going a bit deep under braking. And I can imagine they're just stepping too deep compared to what he'd like to do. It's so easy to run deep into turn number 1 because you have to really work yourself on the brakes. You have to really think about the trail braking lines. You want to go for a very late apex, but get it too wrong and you just end up rolling deep. But right now, coming from the thoughts about trail braking to carving a trail here. Well, George Stone looking for a move on Wesley Van Rens, as Van Rens has to go defensive down the back straight. This will cover off the inside of 13, but the outside coming into what will be roller coaster, and Stone goes up the inside, and Martin Kenyon says, don't mind if I do. The Audi driver sniffs an opportunity, and well, he tries to get his nose in there, but Wesley Van Rens in gets the better exit. But Martin Kenyon, you can understand why he wanted to go for it. Because right now it seems as though when he gets within about 3/10 of the car in front, the Audi loses the pace that he's got further on back. And well, Robin Astor now is starting to get a little bit closer, but Wesley Van Rens there did well not to lose 2 places and just the 1. Respectful racing between the drivers each and every time, no doubt about it. But we can see a bit of a gap open up, because then in 10th place, John Ludbrook right now, well, he has the Class Velen at BMW. His eye is pointing right now. And well, coming out of turn number 1 in towards turn 2, well, Ludbrook has got Velen, Smolny, Johnson, Mantine, and then Maymar all behind him right now. They're all queuing up, and well, you can understand if he's perhaps feeling a little bit of pressure as he makes his way up through left hooking into the right under turn number 5. But the problem for Ludbrook right now is just keeping his cool under the pressure. But I'm sure he can do it. He is one of the more senior drivers here in terms of his veterancy or his experience on the grid. And therefore he's no stranger to being under pressure from multiple cars that are all queuing up behind, as he is forming his own Ludbrook train in reference to, of course, the infamous Formula 1 Trudy train of Monaco. But heading onwards towards turn 7, 8, 9, and then in towards South Bend at 10. Right now Ludbrook seems to be getting everything he needs to get right absolutely spot on. From then we look back to Nick Starr, but remember, after his open lap instant, he's been really on a recovery drive since then, having started all the way in 3rd place. Well, he's already back to 23rd. He's on the back of Mark De Vries here, and well, De Vries using all the exit curb and then a bit more, almost running off the circuit there. De Vries really having to work hard. Denny Ploger battling side by side with Grant Miller, gets the elbow there. Oh, goodness me, Togo Reyes has to take the rallycross line to avoid, and well, a bit of contact between the 2 drivers. That was about as close as it's going to get to disaster for them, without it becoming a disaster. And Luke Bailey now is going to try and come through. The Premier driver here gives all the space in the world to Denny Ploger, and I think respects the fact that Ploger right now will be a little bit fuming about what's happened. But notice here, no slipstream for the Ferrari driver. Ploger's able to get back ahead for a brief moment, but under braking, well, it's still going to be Bailey ahead by nose. Around the outside he goes, and Luke Bailey makes this move happen. But I wonder if we can get a replay of what happened there very shortly through Oak Tree Bend between Miller and also Ploger. Well, we'll see if we can do that. But Denny Ploger now has got Daniel Paul for close company as they go on to another lap. These drivers continue on. We are into lap number 9 of 17, and these laps continue to be accumulated in due course. And we will see how many more laps are to come before all is said and done. But a bit of a switchback move there being made, and that is Daniel Paul trying to look for the opportunity in Denny Ploger to go for 8th place in Evo. Can't quite find it at the moment, but very close between the 2 drivers, no doubt about it. And in fact, I think we might be able to get a replay of the Ploger Miller battle, and well, that replay is coming up now, ladies and gentlemen, and here we go. Now, it all started back at turn number 2 here, where Grant Miller was ahead of Denny Ploger coming in towards NASCAR. However, Ploger went for the move on the inside, smooth move there, and absolutely nailed it. And Miller, I think, in the end might have broken a little bit too early, seeing what's coming, and Reza looked up the inside, couldn't quite find it. We wind forward to what happened then subsequently at Oak Tree Bend, and this was the drivers then making one in, and Miller wanted to try and come back here. Now, did Ploger go deep at 11? No, Miller came charging in, saw the door was open, I think misanticipated how much room, and Ploger came back on, and Reza looked up the inside there, but had nowhere to go, so that explains the story between them. I think there might be some stern words between the drivers after the race is done. Let's head back to your live racing. Well, as we come on back, still some laps to go. We're about halfway through the 30 minutes duration here, and all the drivers right now still pushing onwards, as we do see there what is a bit of a side-by-side of that. It's going to be Togo Reza making the move on Grant Miller. That's now 5th place in Evo for Reza. He continues to crusade his way up the order, and while we're roaring his way on around, we do say hello to Dean Sheasby in the YouTube chat, who confirms that due to an internet connectivity issue, he wasn't able to make it to the grid. I'm very sorry to hear that, Dean, but as we said earlier, congratulations on the arrival of your 3rd little one. So there's always a positive or always a silver lining for every cloud out there. As right now Nick Starr, he's trying to put the clouds of earlier on today at bay, because he makes a move around the outside there. Scott Krosic now up to 16th in the Premier class, or 20th overall. And if Stubb can gain another 5 places, he would be 15th, and he would be started on pole for race number 2, and that, without a doubt, is going to be his target here, to try and crusade his way up the field. But right now, your 15th place runner is Jordan Maymar, your 2nd place Evo driver, and well, if Jordan can hold on to this, I think he's going to be smiling all the way into race number 2, because that will put him in prime position to take his first Evo win of the season after 30 minutes of racing. But we will see what he's able to do, because we've still got some duration to go here. And meanwhile, we look to Matej Smolny versus Class Velen just a little bit further up the road. And Smolny here trying to hold on to 11th place, not really gaining any ground, and in fact, for Smolny, he really has been a bit static in this race. Klaas-Vellen and with him the same, and roaring the way down the back straight here. Klaas-Vellen, Mark Johnson, Andrew Montine all locked together. Well, we are seeing the theme of VIR, which is when you do have equally matched drivers, you normally don't see much happen between them over race distance until somebody makes a mistake. But that's always the exciting part of it, because it does mean now, whilst we're not seeing plenty of side-by-side battles, when you have got 5 or 6 drivers with 3 tenths from car to car, it only takes a small change in pace, and suddenly it can all erupt into a brilliant battle. But that's what we're waiting to see here, as they all queue up behind John Ludbrook, who's in 10th at the foreground of your camera shot, as he goes on to his 11th tour of the circuit under race conditions, and still looks to be in absolute control, at least for the time being. But roaring the way onwards, and as they come down to the braking zone here, right now Smolny there, just about holding his line. You can see Vellen is thinking, look, if Smolny makes a mistake, I've got to be there immediately. They are all eyeing each other up here, and nobody wants to attack the driver in front in case they make an error, and opens up the door to the other driver behind. But as well, everyone's patience is starting to run a little bit thin here, and this is where we're now waiting to see who's going to be the first one to crack and potentially make that move. Further back, Mark De Vries. Oh, that's a bit of contact between De Vries and Kostrich, and Kostrich is going to go to the barrier there. He's not getting that stopped in time, and that was coming into turns 2 and 3. And, well, I can think there that Scott Kostrich right now, from McLaren minus a front bumper, is going to be minus a few other parts on the front end now after that big wham into the barrier. He's able to keep going, but I wouldn't be surprised if Kostrich is going to be making his way to the pit lane after that in order to get the car repaired. They do have a fast repair available, but it will relegate him out of the hunter places in this race. But making the way onwards, in towards the remainder of this lap, well, Wesley Van Rens, meanwhile, you come back to your top 10. He's got Martin Kenyon for close company, and Kenyon takes a peek once. He takes a peek twice here. I wonder if he's trying to make Van Rens guess when it's coming. Well, surely it's got to be going here, unless Martin's going to back out under braking into 13. No, is the answer. He's not. So there's contact between the two of them, and Van Rens goes skidding onto the grass and to the barrier. There is no coming back from that. He's going to make contact with the tyre barrier. He'll creep along, but I wouldn't be surprised that front left suspension now has dropped on the car, considering, in fact, you can see based on the angle of the car and the camera angle, but I think that front left suspension is crooked, and that might be a trip to the pits. He's going to limp along, and we'll see where he's able to get back in the race. A flash of lights there from Ryan Abbott's behind, who's just trying to say, look, I'm just coming through, and we does so. But Van Rens, I think, will be fuming about that one. Again, our camera angle would suggest that perhaps the door was shut on Kenyon, but that's what the stewards will be taking a look at if it gets reported. Can we get a replay of that one? I think we might be able to, but definitely a nightmare moment. And well, here is the replay, ladies and gentlemen, of what just happened between Wesley Van Rens and none other than our Audi driver of Martin Kenyon. As they made the way along, do we have an alternative camera angle? Yes, we do. Does this give us any insight? Not really. Well, Martin Kenyon would argue he had a right to be there. Van Rens would argue that there wasn't a full overlap. That's going to be a tricky one between the two drivers there. And I wonder if we can perhaps get an on-board perspective from Martin Kenyon as to how that played out. Well, here we go. Let's just listen in. Side by side they made the way in, and just the smallest of taps there. Well, it's open to debate, that one. Thankfully, we're just the commentator and not a steward. I can imagine the stewards will have a hard time picking that one apart as we head back to your live racing. As we come back, well, now Wesley Van Rens are looking to try and make his way back up through the field, as that is a move being made on him by none other than Robert Savage. Van Rens has repaired the car since we took a look away. He has used a fast repair in order to do so, but this has relegated him now all the way down the order, all the way down to 38th place overall and 25th in the Premier class. It's a very frustrating one, that, but still, that's one of 2 races in these sprint races he can make up the time. But of course, with that, what this does mean now is that suddenly 15th place is in the hands of Liam Muniz. So, oh my goodness, and Klaas-Vellen's got around. And well, I think Vellen's coming out of the roller coaster and has gone for a roller coaster ride. And as he looks to roll the car off a circuit, I don't think he's been tapped. I think he's lost out of his own volition, but he's going to drop a long way down. And suddenly, James Bostock now finds himself in 15th place overall. And so I think he's going to be hoping that he doesn't have any drama right now, because this would be reverse grid pole position for the purposes of race number 2 here today. Austin Graff is right behind the 3rd place Evo driver, and credit where it's due to Austin Graff. He's enjoying a really good day so far here today. This is going to be, he's on course for his best result of the season if he finishes where he currently stands, both overall and in the Evo class. And with Ryan Abbott's only 2.5 seconds behind him, well, both these drivers enjoying their time out there, no doubt about it. But particularly Austin Graff is looking good. Now, looking a bit further up the order, back into third place, and one Evo driver on a charge. Here's another one. He's behind the McLaren in the foreground of your camera shot. That's for third place overall. And Hussein Sarkadesla right now under huge pressure here from Jonathan Berry, as Adam Baker and George Stone are queuing up behind as well. Berry takes a quick look up the inside, can't quite find it, and we look from the rear here of the 108 McLaren as it powers its way onto the back straight. Now making the way along here, and as you can see, very close. We're not quite close enough as we briefly do lose Sarkadesla. I believe some slight connectivity issues there, but thankfully rematerializes from the ether. And will Jonathan Berry at this point, I think they've set that Mercedes up for the corners because he's not gaining anywhere near as much as he would like on the straights. And I think Sarkadesla's McLaren right now is the faster car on the straights today, perhaps running a bit less rear wing to keep it safe on the straights. But the point being that Berry right now is looking very fierce. As they roll the way around, they're coming to the end of their 13th lap on the circuit, and they've got 4 more to go after this one. We will see a grand total of 17 laps notched up here today, but right now, Hussein Sarkadesla under a lot of pressure to hold onto an overall podium. Of course, for Berry, it doesn't make a difference whether he finishes 4th or 3rd overall, because he still takes the Evo win. However, it's going to be a big matter of pride here and a big landmark result for the Michelin R team if he's able to pull this off. Adam Baker and George Stone would love to get involved for the simple reason they would like to take third place in Premier off of Sarkadesla if they can, because it's worth more points to them. So everyone right now has got a motivator in this 4-way battle. And Robin Paunier, 1.5 seconds ahead of all this. His pace right now, however, is not that much different compared to Sarkadesla and Berry when they're all in clear air. So Paunier will be hoping. Oh no, and that's Sarkadesla into the Berry, loses it coming out the snake, and well, it's a bite in the towel there. It's absolutely venomous, and it's all gone wrong for the Turkish driver as he limps along the barrier. But that's going to be a tow to the pit, and suddenly Jonathan Berry leaps up to third place, and Sarkadesla under pressure takes too much apex curb coming through turn 6A, and it puts him straight to the barrier. Well, it's so easy a mistake to do, even for the Premier drivers around here, because these curbs are much higher than they look, and as soon as you drop down off those curbs and the suspension lands, it completely unsettles the car. And well, right now for Sarkadesla, a great result has been left wanting, and it's gone away from him at a very late notice here on lap number 14 to 17. Meanwhile, with all that, more promotions are abound, of course, for drivers, and now Austin Graff is up into 15th place overall. The third place Evo driver could be on course for your reverse pole position for race 2. But from the facts of who's going to be on reverse pole, let's come back to the certainty right now, which is there's still plenty of battles out there, including Rob Mackay and Simon Hunt enjoying a little bit of ding-dong scrap for 31st, or what for them is 21st in the Premier class, and in towards Oak Tree they come, but as they do, no difference between the two of them. Further back, Oliver Forstrom is on the back of James Pallett, and well, right now the Quatermass Motorsport Lamborghini in all its colourful fashion here. It's close, but not quite close enough as they roll their way from right into left, and as they come into the double right-hander hairpin now, well, can he find a way, Forstrom? And the answer is no, he can't quite, versus the James Pallett Racing League Hub machine, and they stay exactly as they were as they head on to the back stretch. But still some great fun to be had as Matthew Hunter has been overtaken by Simon Hunt and Rob Mackay. Well, it does look as though there Hunter's had a bit of a moment come through roller coaster, and the car's actually limping around at the moment. Hopefully that's not a sign of some damage that he's picked up. Well, he's not making his way to the pit lane, so perhaps just a mistake. Further up the road, well, here's an Evo class battle for you, and that is Daniel Paul trying to keep ahead of Klaas Velen. Steve Rubino there in the BMW on the outside, being passed by Velen. The Premier driver pokes his nose in and taps the rear of Daniel Paul's car, and with Steve Rubino there being hung out the outside and falling down to 9th place in the Evo class, as Daniel Paul almost loses it coming out of NASCAR Bend. And just in front, that's Grant Miller now trying to hold on to 7th place in the Phoenix Racing Red McLaren as he comes from right into left, and through the snake they come. But as he does, we can see, look at Rubino immediately back on the rear of this pack and absolutely attack him. We ride on board then with the Hobo Racing driver, and right now, well, you can understand the number 27 driver here, I think, not quite foaming at the mouth at this point, but not far off of it, because he wants that place back, and he wants to take on Daniel Paul and Miller for key points in the Evo class. But will he be able to do so as Paul goes out wide and goes completely sideways across the grass, and Daniel Paul's car comes sliding back onto the circuit, but thankfully off racing line, and Daniel Paul, well, he brings it back together, but losing it there. An easy mistake to make through South Bend. I don't think he was aided on his adventure, however, we don't have full confirmation of that, but I think Daniel Paul either way is the rear of the car. Let's go. That's boiling hot rear tyres. Daniel Paul's race right now is going round and round as all the field avoids the stricken Porsche and does so very well. Great awareness from all drivers coming through the scene of the incident. But from drama there, we come back inside the top 10. And Martin Kenyon still trying to chase down George Stone for 5th place overall. But he's got Robin Aston now for close company. And Aston here absolutely breathing down his neck as they roll the way through NASCAR Bend. And Kenyon, if he can hold on right now, this will be a great return to form. George Stone there decides to trim up some grass. And he'll get away with that a number of times. But he won't be able to get away with it forever, because if he does it too many times, he'll find himself receiving a drive-through penalty. For the lowered instant point count for this season in order to make sure that driving standards are as high as humanly possible. But roaring the way onwards right now, will Kenyon driving to a very high standard here today, no doubt about it, on this penultimate lap of the race. We're on lap 16 or 17, and we'll one more to come after this. And Kenyon right now just trying to find a way to notch up what will be 5th place overall and 4th place in the Premier class. Plenty of great racing out there, no doubt about it, as he comes down through an oak tree, and Robin Aston watching in the wings. Further back, as the drivers make their way to us, well, there is James Bostock chasing after Liam Yaniso, and well, they're fighting over 13th place overall, or class 11th in the Premier class. He's got Austin Graff close behind, but Graff at this point, I think he's just watching this and thinking, you know what, I'm on course for a pole position, or at least the front row of the overall grid in race number 2 if everything goes right. I think there's going to be a big smile there for Austin Graff if he can pull this off, because that's going to put him on course to potentially his best results of the season so far. But we will see what he's going to be able to do very shortly, as all these drivers carry on here. And well, we look from them to the very front of the field, because one more lap to go, and Menno Blom heads to the white flag here as the Sim Racing Team Lowlands driver has a 5-second gap to Robin Powney in the Sim Coach Corvette in second. And then we do have in 3rd place, which is not quite the Blue Sky Esports machine behind of Rachel Hugh, but indeed it's the Jonathan Berry machine there. 3rd place in overall, but leader of the Evo class is the Mission R Esports driver, with Adam Baker and George Stone rounding off that overall top 5. And while the battle inside the top 5 may have calmed down for a brief moment, but outside of it, James Bostock is not holding back here as he tries to make a move around the outside of Yaniso into turn 1. Well, that was going to be a daring move there. Can't quite make it happen, but he will do now. Snap to the outside into 2. Yaniso goes defensive, and Bostock right now really trying to get into Yaniso's head, trying to get him drive off racing line, doing well. But I think right now Yaniso too wary of what's going on, and now really just parking the car on the apexes and saying to Bostock, well, look, you can go for it, but we're both going to lose a lot of pace, and it's only going to get harder and harder the longer you want to do this the remainder of the race. Well, Austin Graff there follows them, and then we've got an 8-second gap to Mark De Vries, who almost loses it coming out of turn number 5, and he's got Nick Stubb right behind, and Stubb right now on the attack here as we ride on board the front bumper of the Mercedes, where he's come all the way through the field after his open lap drama. And the Glass Tech Racing driver, if he can make this happen, it'll be 16th. He won't quite be in that reverse grid for race number 2, but he'll have got very close to it, and I think to him now feel like a win in itself. But right now, not close enough here to attack De Vries as they head in towards Oak Tree, and that Porsche is looking very, very planted. But from them and looking back up the field, well, we come here briefly to Matthias Smolny under pressure from Mark Johnson, but from them we must come to the front of the field. So he roars his way out the final quarter. The checker flag is going to wave and find him, and for Menno Blom, it's going to be a dominant drive to victory here in race number 1 of the day at VIR, taking victory by 4 seconds over Robin Powney for Sim Coach in second. Adam Baker rounds off your top 3 there. Well done to the LS Racing driver, a return to the podium. Robin Aston takes 4th place. Hold up a second, who takes 4th? It's George Stone with connectivity issues who takes 4th. Ahead of Martin Kenyon and Robin Aston. Jonathan Berry will bring home the Evo victory there in 7th place, ahead of John Ludbrett, Matthias Smolny and Mark Johnson. Andre Martin is 11th, ahead of Jordan Maymar, your run-up in Evo. Liam Yaniso 13th. Austin Graff in 14th, 3rd place in Evo, and James Bostock will take 15th place after a late error. Well, he's your reverse grid pole sitter for race number 2. It'll then be Mark De Vries in 16th, ahead of Nick Stubb. Tiago Reza takes 4th place in Evo, 18th overall, ahead of Luke Bailey, with Denny Ploger completing the Evo top 5 in 20th, ahead of Grant Miller and Steve Rubino. Klaas Vellen takes 23rd, ahead of Scott Kostrich, and it'll be Rob Smith, Andrew Fellows, and Rob Mackay all coming to line there, ahead of Simon Hunt. With then your top 30 completed by Matthew Hunter, who had a better race compared to qualifying, 13 places gained. Well done to Matthew, and he was ahead of Stuart Rice, who round off your top 30. We've still got a couple more drives to come to the finish line, including a bit of a battle there. That's Pete Piver going around the outside of Oliver Forstrom on the final corner. I think Forstrom's run out of fuel because he's crawling to a finish. Well, he's going to make it there, hopefully. And, well, as they make the way on across, well, it's going to be Piver there finishing in 35th. Barry Wenman was just up the road. Eduardo Endino will take home 36th place, and will Forstrom make it to the finish line? That is going to be the question, and the answer is I don't think he is. How far is he away? He's not going to make it. Will he get a push from Andy Chell, his teammate? Well, here comes Andy, and I think Andy decides, yes, he is going to give a little bit of a push. So give them a round of applause. A bit of teamwork, ladies and gentlemen, as Andy does give his teammate a nudge. And as he makes way along there, we ride on board, and you'll notice in Andy's car, gorgeous G in the top right of the driver's door banner. And I believe, unless that's incorrect in my memory, that is in reference to his wife, who enables him to go racing each and every week. And a big thank you there to G, or G Chell, Andy's wife out there. But as all the drivers head to the end of this race, we do have a 5-minute breather to take you through those race results before we go racing once again, ladies and gentlemen. What a race, number one, and we have got plenty more to come. But before we do that, I am going to take a quick sip of water. Thank you for the reminder there, Rob, in the YouTube chat, because definitely right now, my pint glass of water, I'm already halfway through it, and I don't think it's going to make it to the end of race number 2. As we get the results up on screen, here's your overall results for race number 1, these being provisional subject to any stewards' inquiries. And Menobloem taking victory there for Sim Racing Team Lowlands by 4 seconds over Sim Coach's Robin Palnier, and LS Racing's Adam Baker completing your overall podium and we're at the Premier podium. Well done to them. George Stone drove to a brilliant full place finish for Mission R powered by Maud, ahead of Axis Sim Sport Ice's Martin Kenyon, who did well to fight for 5th in the Audi. Robin Aston took 6th for Kame GP2 Racing, and there was a further second. In fact, a further 2 seconds back to Jonathan Berry, your Evo class winner, taking 7th for Mission R powered by Maud. John Ludbrook was 8th there for Kame GP2 Racing, ahead of Matthias Smolny, with the Mission R esports drive being followed up by Mark Johnson, who rounded off your top 10 for Axis Sim Sports Ice. Behind him was his teammate Andrew Montine, and then we did see your run-up in Evo, Jordan Maymar, in 12th for Simcast Racing Team UK. And it was Liam Yaniso, Austin Graff, and James Bostock for the Privateer, Axis Sim Sports Ice, and Kame GP2 Racing outfits respectively, who rounded off your overall top 15. And that does mean that James Bostock lines up on pole position for race number 2. We won't dwell for much longer on the overall finishing positions, other than we will, of course, give a shout out to our Evo podium finishers there of Jonathan Berry, Jordan Maymar, and Austin Graff. But we also come down to the very bottom of the field to talk a little bit about the drivers who didn't make it to the end of the race, and those that do, of course, include, as we look all the way down, well, the last of drivers on the lead lap was Andy Cho in 38 for Quantum Motorsport Bravo, who pushed his teammate Oliver Forstrom across the line. There was a lap down there to Alex Boniface, Rachel Hugh, and Ross Norsworthy, with Eddie Theobald 2 laps down. And then we did see 3 laps down to Ryan Abbott, James Pallett, Robert Savage, 4 laps down to Hussein Sarakadesla with his late retirement from the race. He'll be classified as a finisher, but classified non-finishers, James Fraser, Samuel Reba, and your non-starter of Dean Sheasby. Coming on to the individual class finishing positions, and this is where all the points are scored, so this is where they're more important perhaps. Menno Bloem taking victory in the Premier class there. And an absolutely brilliant drive for Sim Racing Team Lowlands ahead of Sim Coach's Robin Palnier. And then it was Adam Baker for LS Racing, who took his first podium of the season, I believe. In fact, let me just double check and verify that. But I believe first podium of the season there for Adam Baker, and he'll be absolutely chuffed with that one. George Stone, a brilliant drive to fourth, fended off the charge of Martin Kenyon, with Robin Aston there not really able to get too involved, so a comfortable 6th for him. John Ludbrook was 7th and held off the charges of Matthias Smolny, Mark Johnson, and Andre Montaigne, and there was a further 7 seconds back where you'll find best the rest of 11th, Liam Yaniso. Kame GP2 Racing's James Bostock was 12th, ahead of Mark DeVries, with Nick Stubb and Luke Bailey round off your Premier top 15. And from there, the Sim Racing Team Lowlands and the Glass Tech Racing drivers was then Penguin Racing Endeavour's Klaas Vellen, who was 16th. Your top 20 was rounded off by Scott Kostrich, Rob Smith, Andrew Fellows, and Rob Mackay, with then Simon Hunt and Stuart Rice 21st and 22nd. And outside those places, of course, plenty more Premier drivers, including Wesley Van Rens with the heartbreaking into his race for 9 Pegasus Pantera at the roller coaster, and was a sort of difficulty for Pete Piver, but even more so for Ross Norsworthy, who's a lap down, and also your finishers there, multiple laps down of James Pallett and Hussein Sarakadesla, with the non-starter Dean Sheasby. Then coming on to the Evo class, last but by no means least, and here we did see Jonathan Berry, your winner, by a comfortable 8 seconds for Mission R powered by Maud over Simcast Racing Team UK's Jordan Maymar. Well done to Jonathan Berry, adding another win to his championship campaign. And for Jordan Maymar, it's another second place, it's another podium, but not a win as of yet. Austin Graff, 3rd place there for Axis Sim Sports Ice. A solid podium there to give him a huge championship points boost. And then it was a further 16 seconds before you got to your 4th place Evo finisher of Tiago Reza for 9 Pegasus Pantera. He did well to hold off the charge of Denny Plurger for MJK Sim Racing, within your top 10 being completed by Grant Miller for Phoenix Racing Red, Ahead of Steve Rubino for Hobo Racing, who had mixed fortunes in the race. Simcast Racing Team UK's Matthew Hunter was 8th, and Flatline Racing's pair of Matt Stace and Daniel Paul 9th and 10th respectively. Barry Winman was 11th for best of the rest for Dexterous Motorsport Quamar, ahead of Eduardo and Dino, and then your Evo class was rounded out on the lead lap by Oliver Forstrom and Andy Chell, with a lap down there to Alex Boniface, Rachel Hugh, 2 laps down to Eddie Theobald, 3 laps down to Ryan Abbott, Robert Savage, and in non-finishes for James Fraser, Sammy Ariba, and I believe that was it for your Evo class, ladies and gentlemen. So that completes our rundown of the provisional results from race number 1, and very shortly we'll be heading to the grid for our second race of the day. And when we do, well, we will walk you through how that grid lines up. We can't bring it up on screen, unfortunately, due to technical limitations for the replay file that we are using. That's the only handicap we do have here of this post-round broadcast, is we can't bring you a visual of the grid, but we will talk you through how all our drivers line up for our second and final race of the day here for round number 5 of the championship at the VIR circuit. So as all our drivers make the way onto the grid for our second and final race of the day, how do they all line up, I hear you ask? Well, let's bring you to that pit lane and bring you to where all our drivers are queuing up on the grid. You can see them there all gradually making their way into position. And unfortunately, you also see the time and towel there being all shuffled on through, so it's not going to quite work out with regards to how everybody lines up. But what we can do is we can cheat the system and talk you through that grid. So line up on pole position, it is going to be James Bostock, who's made his way to the front, having finished 15th in our first race of the day. He'll be joined on the front row of the grid by Austin Graff, your Evo pole sitter there, and third place finisher in class of the previous race. Will be very happy with that second place start. Could it be a first win of the season in Evo for Austin Graff? We will see. Third place will go to Liam Uniso ahead of Jordan Maymar, the championship leader in Evo. Well, he starts second of the Evo trials, and surely he must be on course for a good result, or at least that'll be his hope. Andre Montine will start there in 5th place ahead of Mark Johnson, and from them we will then have Matthias Smolny, who lines in 7th place ahead of John Ludbrook. From the Premier Driver, it will then be Jonathan Berry, your Evo winner in race number 1. Well, he will be starting now in 3rd place in the Evo class in the second race, and 9th on the grid ahead of Robin Aston as they continue to make the way on around. And as they do so, well, everyone now starting to trickle the way through, and we can bring up the time and towel there and talk you through those positions with some graphical accuracy. So with row number 5, I should say, complete, in 11th place best of the rest, it will be Martin Kenyon as he makes his way around, with George Stone line up alongside in 12th. Adam Baker and Robin Powney line up together on row number 7, and then starting 15th, Menno Blom, your race 1 winner, he starts there, and then you have your 16th place finish from race number 1, starting exactly there in race number 2. It's going to be Menno Blom's teammate. It'll be Mark De Vries. From the 2 Dutchmen, it will then be going the way of the Briton and Nick Stubb in 17th ahead of Thiago Reza, and then we will have Luke Bailey and Denny Plurger who round off your top 20. In fact, I believe Nick Stubb's a Dutchman as well, so apologies for that. Grant Miller starts 21st ahead of Steve Rubino, and from the battle of the 2 old friends from season 8 in the Evo class, we then come to your Premier sitter in 23rd, that'll be Klaas Vellum. 24th goes the way of Scott Kostrich ahead of none other than Rob Smith, with Andrew Fellows starting in 26th place. 27th will be Rob Mackay, and he'll be in the company on row number 14 of Simon Hunt, with your top 30 being completed by Matthew Hunter and Andrew Fellows. And then have started 31st in this race, none other than Wesley Van Rens, as he continues his recovery efforts. He'll be in the company of Matt Stace, the Evo driver. And then we will have behind them 33rd and 34th, Daniel Paul and Barry Wenman respectively, with row number 18 going to the partnership of Pete Piver and Eduardo Andino. And then on row number 19, it'll be Oliver Forstrom and Andy Chell, the 2 teammates who worked together to finish the race in race number 1. They're together 37th and 38th for the grid. Good to see them out there for Quatermass Motorsport. Then round off your top 40, it'll be Alex Boniface and Rachel Hugh. Starting 41st, we will have Ross Norsworthy ahead of Eddie Theobald, with both of them having dramatic ends to their respective races, with row number 22 going to Ryan Abbott and James Pallett. And then we'll have 45th on this grid, Robert Savage ahead of Hussein Sarakadasla, with row number 24 going to James Fraser and Sammy Ariba. And last but not least, if he can make it to the grid, although I don't think he's going to be able to, would be none other than Dean Sheasby. So that's how the field lines up, our 49 starters or potential starters for our second race of the day. And as they all make the way around, well, we are missing a couple of drivers on this grid, and that does include both Dean Sheasby and Wesley Van Rens. I believe Ryan Abbott and Rob Smith both in the pit lane currently, so they plan to start from the pit lane. But otherwise, we are going to have a grand total of 45 starters on the tarmac, at least, for this second race a day. And we'll see how it all unfolds from that point onwards, ladies and gentlemen, as they all gradually get themselves set for another brilliant 30 minutes of racing action here at the Virginia International Raceway. But looking down close, well, for James Bostock, of course, this is a golden opportunity to take his first win of the season. And will he be able to convert a pole position into victory? The theory would be that surely he would be able to, given the pace he's been able to demonstrate in race number 1. But you never say never, and Liam Yaniso may just feel a little bit more galvanised, knowing the fact that a victory in the Premier class is only a couple of places away from him. Keep your eyes out, however, for some fast chargers, including Nick Stubb, who starts a long way down the order, still down in 16th place. What can he do from down there? Well, we're about to find out, ladies and gentlemen, because it's time to go green flag racing for the second and final time today here in round number 5 of the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship Season 9. And it's lights out and away we go for our second race of the day. James Bostock nails the start. Look at Yaniso, meanwhile, immediately up the inside here as they head in towards turn number 1. Further behind, Austin Graff. They're now having to look for Andrew Benteen and Jordan Maymar exchanging blows as they all come through the opening couple of corners. Every driver safely on through so far. Plenty of free wides in the mid-pack there, including Steve Rubino finding himself right on the outside. Car around. That is Austin Graff. Graff in drama. Car further back. There's Steve Rubino going around as well. So Graff's had drama. Rubino's had drama. It's Evo drama there in the opening stage of the race. He just stops it from rolling back onto the circuit. There's a bumper that's flying around there. I don't know whose that is. That's off the back of a Ferrari 296 from Simcast Racing Team UK, I think. We'll try and find out what's happened there very shortly. But right now there has been some drama in the early stages, but all the field safely on through. Although saying that, I think we had a bit of man. That's Robin Powney there. We also, is that Menno Blom who's ended up in the weeds? It is. That's Blom's gone round, and we've also got a Carbe GP2 machine. I think that's John Ludbrook's car that's struggling along. There's been huge drama at the start. We also lost Jordan Maymar. Well, I believe he might have been the rear bumper. Grant Miller there parts the seams, being on the rear of the picture and squeezes his way between what is Simon Hunt and Robin Powney. So that's brave, but he's up into 4th in the Evo class. My good lord, there's drama everywhere right now. We're going to have to unpick a lot of this right at the start, and Nick Stubb in all this is up into 15th place. He battles his way out the inside of Scott Kostrich, and will Stubb there getting his elbows out nice and early. And now he's in prime time to try and make up some ground. But as everything finally settles down, at least for a brief moment, well, looking up to the front of the field, James Bostock immediately put it away. Andrew Benteen makes contact there with Yaniso, and in the end, both drivers get it out of sorts. It's the slowest spin I've ever seen for a BMW M4 in the GT3 category. But Yaniso there caught on Smoldy's car, and well, Smoldy took to the grass. Yaniso tried to keep it on the tarmac and came off the worst of the two. As Matthias Smoldy, meanwhile, makes his way onwards. And in fact, that was Andrew Benteen, my apologies, who was on the grass, not Matthias Smoldy, who's taken the place off him, but Andrew Benteen has just recovered the car. But I think there's some irreparable damage on that car because it's making its way across the grass. He's struggling to get it back on, and as we said earlier on in today's broadcast, once you're on the grass here at VIR, it is very hard to get off of, even in bone stock dry conditions, as what we're seeing today. But he does rejoin in and rejoins all the way down in 21st place. That is a punishing end to his opening lap, and in fact it's going to be even more punishing now as Robin Powney up the inside, as is Daniel Paul. The places continue to fall, and right now Barry Wenman also thinks, how can I get involved here? He's going to try and squeeze his way out the inside versus Andrew Benteen. Coming out to 1, he'll do so into 2, and right now Andrew Benteen put down to 24th. But in all of this, well, Liam Yaniso here battling side by side. That's with Denny Plager as they come out of left hook and in towards the snake. And as they do, it's too wide on entry. And when Yaniso gets back ahead, then says to Plager, no, you don't, as he chases after Mark De Vries. So right now, there's some stability brought. You can see the long queue of cars behind. Nick Stubb, meanwhile, in all of this, is still trying to get involved here. And Stubb right now, well, he's so close, he can reach out and touch the rear class Vellen's car with his hands, albeit he won't want to do that. And then so all the way through turn 7, 8 and 9 in towards South Bend. You can see how close all these drivers are. We're looking around the outside there in towards Oak Tree Bend. He's not going to be able to find the move in Stubb. Normally he's been one of his weaker spots this back section of the circuit because he just doesn't seem to have the top end speed compared to some of his rivals, even in the draft. But from them, Mark De Vries and Liam Yaniso still fighting here as they make the way up the back straight. It's very close between the two of them. And, well, right now, between them, there is nothing other than the air gap. And as they roar the way in towards Roller Coaster, where it's going to be De Vries on the inside to outside line, Yaniso on outside to inside. They battle for the brakes into the apex. And Yaniso does get ahead and just forces the issue through out of roller coaster they come, and Liam Uniso now up into 10th place or 8th in the Premier class. So brilliant battling there for Uniso, and trying to recover his way back into the race as quickly as he possibly can as they get on to lap number 3. But as they do, we can see the long queue of cars that's caused behind. It's a long train of machines. That is over 15 cars in this queue right now. Such is the way Uniso and De Vries' battling's gone. It's caused the whole field to queue up behind. And we can see there Klaas Vellen trying to go around the outside of your 3rd place Evo driver of Denny Plurger as the Premier driver tries to pick his way past, where he goes a bit too deep, and that's going to open up the door to Nick Stubb, who says, okay, I'll take that one off of you, thank you. And Vellen simply says, no, you don't. And I think Stubb's going to say, no, I wasn't asking. But he's going to go deep. He runs wide. Uniso's off the road as well on the right side of your picture. So Uniso was climbing back up. He suddenly had it all go wrong. I'll have to get a replay of that when we can. And Stubbs' mistake puts him back with Rob Mackay. And Mackay right now just runs a bit wide there. Oh no, and it's Miller. Miller goes round to the exit at turn number 5. It's drama for the Phoenix Racing driver. And right now it seems as though the gloves have come off since race number 1. Race number 1 was a relatively calm race, apart from some dramatic moments. But right now, well, I think the Red Mist has permanently descended here. But where's all of it? Well, we do see Flatline Racing there making some great ground in the orange machines, with Daniel Paul up into 22nd, and Matt Stace also making some great progress there as they head onwards. But it's absolute chaos here at VIR at the moment, and can anybody bring some calm? Well, James Pallett's thinking of doing so as he looks for an opportunity here to try and go round the outside of the Ford Mustang. Oh, Pete Piper, they're fighting over 25th, or his 19th place in the Premier class. Pallett there making a bit of a ham sandwich of Oak Tree Corner, mounting the curb and it unsettling the car rather graphically, and the Racing League Hub driver falling backwards there and now hoping that the 6-cylinder turbo machine can get a little bit closer. But I think right now that Mustang is just going to pull away with all its power. But roaring the way onwards and up towards the roller coaster right now, we've got to try and get those places back through the corners, which is where the Ferrari will be the stronger of the two, particularly those medium speed off camber corners such as here at roller coaster. But from them, one driver who's gained in all the chaos and Stuart Rice, a special mention here. He's moved up a lot of places. Given the fact he started this one outside the top 30, he's up into 18th overall. So Rice right now on course potentially for some good points. He's 15th in the Premier class, so some points would come his way if he's able to hold on to this. But right now, I think he's settling into the rhythm here. And Stuart Rice has definitely had a difficult season so far, so he'll be looking for a good news story with which to try and cap the first half of the season off with if he can. But with all of that and what's happened, we need to start picking our way through exactly how this race unfolded at the very start in the opening couple of laps. And how exactly do we do that, I hear you ask? Well, firstly, we keep an eye here on Rice trying to make his way through, but he's not going to quite be able to do so on the back of Barry Wenman. And Wenman there getting a bit of flashing lights treatment for Rice. Rice, I think, very eager to make the move, as just in front, Nick Stubb trying to make a move on Andrew Fellows here. Not quite able to do so, heading into turns 7, 8 and 9. But we take a pause from the live action because here come your replays of the opening couple of laps, ladies and gentlemen. There was plenty to unpack. We're going to try and unpack some of it. And here we go, starting with what happened to Austin Graf on the opening lap. Now, this was Austin Graf at the time, looking around the outside there of Andrew Montine. Ran a little bit deep, just got the power down, car let go, made contact there with Matthias Smolny, and that was Austin Graf's race as quickly as it started. It was very quickly into the grass and staying there for some time, and that was his rear bumper rolling around. We subsequently had it all go wrong for Steve Rubino. He was ejected out, as you may remember. And that was James Fraser in the rear of the picture, also getting ejected off the circuit. Later on the opening sequence of quarters, this is what happened to sim coach's Robin Palnier, as he made his way through left hook and into the right-hander, battling with Luke Bailey. Was an instant in front, the seas parted around it, and Palnier in the end on the grass. We really need to know what happened there to the drivers in front of them. I believe Adam Baker was in the heart of all of that, and Jordan Maymar. Can we get a bit of a flashback to that? We are going to try to here with a different camera angle to see what happened. So Adam Baker versus Jordan Maymar. Baker on the inside. I think some netco contact there, and it sent both of them round. And that's why the whole sea had to part there. Menno Bloem, meanwhile, he was caught up in all this. What exactly happened to Bloem was further up the road. Well, Martin Kenyon was with him. Oh, big slide there for the number 125. And in the end, just taking a race of action, Menno Bloem was unsettled and went around. That's when he was trying to dart his way around the 125 of none other than, I believe, Robin Aston, who'd gone around. So that explains everything that happened between them and the subsequent chaos and carnage. We then had this happen on what was, I believe, could this be lap number 3? This was Grant Miller having a bit of a moment. And as they roar the way around, well, we will see what will be Grant Miller. He was able to take a bit of evasive action 2 laps later after being tapped on the rear by Simon Hunt, where it was less evasive action and more being escorted to the barrier there for Grant Miller. So a frustrating end to his run of form. And then we had this also on lap number 3 for Jordan Maymar. well, making his way down the hill and in towards turn 17 at Hog Pen. Side by side he went, contact there with none other than, I believe, that would have been the car of Ryan Abbott, and sent Maymart to the grass, and that fills us in on everything that's happened on the opening few laps, ladies and gentlemen. Let's return to your live racing. Definitely a lot of drama on those opening couple of laps. I don't think we quite caught it all, but we caught all the big flashpoints out there. We've done our best to do so. And well, as all the drivers carry on right now, there's still more to come. And speaking of which, well, we're on to lap number 6 here. And we've got the best part of another 11 laps to go. And Matthias Smolny right now in second for Mission R. He's got his teammate Joffa Berry right behind, albeit it's a Premier driver ahead of an Evo driver, as we look to the class positions meanwhile, and give you a bit more of a story there as they roar the way around. And as they come around, well, all the drivers here right now keeping together. We have had an update, by the way, that Nick Stubb has passed Andrew Fellows, and I believe Fellows backing out of battling with Stubb, respect to the fact that Stubb the faster of the two drivers, and there's no value in holding him up. So that means Nick Stubb is up into 14th place overall, or 11th place in Premier, and well, they've roared away onwards. And thank you for that information there, Rob, in the YouTube chat. Well, definitely race number 2 proving to be absolutely chaotic. But I think now we are beyond the majority of the chaos, and well, Nick Stubb right now already is proving to be the man on a mission as we jump on board again with the 169 driver, this time from the Netherlands, trying to look for a move versus Scott Kostridge, trying to make his way into the top 10 of the Premier class. Well, patience is going to be a virtue here for Stubb. We know he's not the fastest car on the straights. We know he's very quick in the corners. And we're coming out of South Bend and in towards Oak Tree. Really lunging onto the brakes there. Has a lot more confidence to carry the speed. Runs nice and deep into the corner. Gets Kostridge to go all out of sorts there. But is he going to be close enough to look for a move here? Will gap on corner exit. 3 attempts. Now he'll inch closer and closer. The toe starts to build here. Now 2 attempts and climbing a little bit more. Can he find a way in? He's going to go for it here. Here's Stubb. I think it's going to be a full run all the way down the straight. And Kostridge right now hitting max speed here as they head in towards roller coaster. 2 wide they enter. Stubb around the outside. Can he get it done? Yes, he can. Kostridge is still going to try and hold it all the way around to Hog Pen. But the problem on that outside line is you are naturally going for a wider circumference. And Nick Stubb does get the move done. That's an important move. 10th place down in the Premier class. Stubb is absolutely roaring his way onwards. But as he does so, well, more still to come, certainly, as we look back to James Pallett and Pete Piver. They're still enjoying their little ding-dong battle now for 18th in the Premier class. And will Pallett there so close he could reach where it's going to be Ford versus Ferrari in the modern era between these two at the moment. Both running colours representing their respective manufacturers. And we're in towards turn number 1. And Pallett here, very close. Piper goes defence on the inside. Oh my goodness, and that is too late on the brakes. Cuts to the grass, and in the end for James Pallett, it was eagerness that was misplaced. I think Pete Piper there in the end will put Pallett on the line of you're either going to have to lunge on the grass, alternatively you're going to have to back off. And Pallett didn't want to do the latter, he wanted to do the former. And well, in the end, Pallett not quite get it right. Meanwhile, Rachel Hughes taking a trip to the weeds there at turn number 1. I don't know if that was aided or not, but Rachel Hughes crawling back onto the circuit and battling with Andy Chell, goes around the outside. And well, right now it does seem as though Hugh falling from grace, now down to 11th place in the Evo class, having been recently in 9th place, and of course for a good set of points. But it's got a bit rocked there for Rachel Hugh, but Andy Chell on the rise, and we've got a lot of cars in the pit lane in the meantime, having repair work done, a lot of retirements as well. And in terms of those retirements so far, we've had retirements for Andrew Montine, Robert Savage, Steve Rubino, Matthew Hunter, Jordan Maymart, Eddie Theobald, and of course the non-stop Dean Sheasby. And I believe Austin Graff might also be out there at the moment, albeit a lap down. Well, that's a story or two. But coming back to the front of the field, meanwhile, well, of everything that's going on at the moment, we need to remember the fact we've also got a lead battle going on here. 1 minute we look towards the back of the field, and the next minute we're looking at the very front of it. James Bostock might be leading, but he's not leading comfortably right now because he has got the fellow Porsche Matthias Smolny only 4 attempts behind him as I head up towards turn number 1. And you can see the long queue of cars forming. At the back of this queue is none other than Martin Kenyon in his Audi R8. And, well, right now the Axis Spin Sport Ice driver just trying to keep his cool as he roars his way on around. But he's got George Stone, John Lebrett and Mark Johnson as 3 Premier drivers he needs to pick his way past first, where he considers the Evo driver Joffa Berry and an opportunity to try and fight for what would be the top 2 places in Smolny and Bostock. We'll see what he's going to be able to do here as he comes charging out to turn number 5 and onwards towards Snake. But right now all these drivers are matching each other and all just playing the waiting game, and I think counting down some laps here in order to get themselves to the prime position to overtake. That luxury is not available, meanwhile, if your name is Mark De Vries, and with the fact that he's got Klaas Wellen right behind him. And Wellen here so close at the moment that I think if he gets any closer, he's going to be definitely looking for a dicey move under braking. Denny Ploger watches behind, and currently the third place Evo driver running in 12th overall. Not under any pressure to really get past them. He would ideally like to, because Thiago Reza is only a little bit further up the road. The second place Evo driver, you can see his BMW M4 for 9 Pegasus Pantera making its way on past us at that time. But the point being that Ploger right now really being patient and letting see how this plays out, because Reza does not seem to be really pulling off into the distance. He's got Luke Bailey in front of him as well, so therefore all the Evo drivers inside the top 3 places, they are surrounded by Premier drivers at the moment, and that seems to be pinning their pace down somewhat. We'll see what happens between them as these drivers make the way up the hill, but as they come through the crest and down into roller coaster, nothing between them at this time. Meanwhile, Rob Mackay battling there with Andrew Fellows, looks for an opportunity to pass Fellows on the outside to inside, can't quite find it. Instead, Simon Hunt now gets close as we ride aboard the dashboard here, the Quatermass Motorsport machine. Now Hunt here in a bit of a different livery today, whether that's a graphical glitch or not I can't tell you, but what I can tell you is that right now he's trying to chase down what would be 13th place in the Premier class, and just in front of that is Andrew Fellows in 12th place in said class. So Hunt here looking to score some good points for Quatermass Motorsport, but too far back at the moment to look for a move as we hear the lovely whine of the Porsche engine. Right now maxing out in top gear, but roaring his way through turn number 1. He'll come all the way down to second gear here and just try and keep it nicely composed as he sweeps his way in towards turns 2 and 3 once again today. Now at this point, if you are Simon Hunt, what you've got to be thinking is, well, Mackay might be close to Fellows, but it looks like nothing's happening between the two of them, so he's going to have to start to try and stick a move on here. Albeit, I think Hunt at this point might just be struggling for a little bit of rotation between them as they make their way onwards. And we'll go on around. Upwards they'll go towards turns 7, 8 and 9. And Hunt right now close, but not close enough to really think about a move. We're going to stay with this battle for a little bit longer. I think Fellows here might be at risk of a move being put on him shortly, because he's not looking comfortable at the moment, it's Andrew Fellows. And Scott, well, not Scott Kostrich, who's up the road from him, 2 seconds away and running away, but Rob Mackay is close. Now, can Mackay go for a move here on the exit of Oak Tree Bend? I think he's thinking about it. He's just trying to size up the run. Takes plenty of apex curve. And in fact, that is a very good run there for Mackay. I think he's going to have an opportunity here coming up towards roller coaster. Behind you see Powney is closing as well. So the sim coach driver, who's out of position here, is going to be thinking about an opportunity. But up the rise they come. Immediately Fellows goes defensive here. But do you go inside to outside or outside to inside? Well, it's going to be outside to inside here for Mackay. Up the inside he goes. Then into the roller coaster. Does he get it stopped? He does. Fellows there bumping and grinding with him. The two are coming down out the corner into his Hog Pen, and now Fellows have an opportunity here to push into turn 16, but he's not going to take it, and Mackay makes the move stick. Lovely driving there between the two of them, and Rob Mackay takes the place, but is he safe as they head up towards the timeline and on to lap number 10? Well, the gap exiting Hog Pen was 2/10. Fellows is close. Is he close enough to make the counter attack here? Gut feeling says that he might be considering it. He's going to have to really lunge it if he wants it. Mackay teases him. He flashes the inside line to him and says, do you want it? And in the end, he doesn't get it. Fellows goes a bit deep. Mackay goes deep. They all go deep. And there's a front bumper of Simon Hunt's Porsche as a result. Well, Simon Hunt there, he had the door open for a 2-for-1 special. But in the end, unfortunately, it's all gone to the tip as he taps through a Fellows car. And I think that's some frustration there from Hunt. Misses braking point. And in the end, it sends Fellows himself to the weeds. And Rob Mackay gets away with it all. Well, Mackay takes the place. Lovely move, and goodness me, it's not quite working out for him, but as he makes way onwards right now, Rob Mackay has had that all go the right way, whereas his rivals have had it all go the wrong way. We need to come away from that now, because second place at Evo is under threat here. Thiago Reza might be the driver holding on to it, but Denny Ploger absolutely staying with him as they roar the way around as they charge away through the corners right now. Well, Reza and Ploger close, but is there going to be any difference between the two of them? It looks as though at the moment the BMW driver holding on, at least for a brief moment. Powering the way up the backstretch they go, and for these drivers it's going to be a bit of a pause in that battle. We thought that Ploger would have an opportunity, but it seems as though they're everything that the Dutchman could do in the corners, the Brazilian could do on the straights in that BMW. So the classic chalk and cheese campaign between them. Further back, well, that's James Pallett in 32nd. He's being pinned down here by Grant Miller and Alex Boniface, the two Evo drivers who would love to have an opportunity to scrap over 10th place in their class, but more importantly, they want to get past him because 9th place in class, Andy Chell, is only 3/10 up the road from them. And we're heading out of the hairpin onto the back straight. Well, will Miller or Boniface have enough straight line speed? They've also got Eduardo and Dino close behind, the LS Racing driver, as they make their way onwards. And well, all these drivers right now pushing each other hard. But is there going to be any move coming forward in towards roller coaster? I don't think there is. I think they're all going to have to wait for that opportunity, and that seems to be the story up and down the field for now. Nobody really able to make a move. There's a lot of close drivers out there. Indeed, the pack has been the tightest we've seen it this season at VIR, but right now I think everyone is finding their equal match and nobody wants to risk making the move. As we've seen Hussein Sarakadessa there, passing Simon Hunt through turn 1. Hunt in a very wounded Porsche 992 at this point, and I think the Quatermass Motorsport 173 just trying to limp its way home now to try and get some points on the board. We'll see what it's able to do, but all the drivers continue to push onwards here, and we come back to the Andino, Boniface and Miller battle for 10th place at Evo. That is going to be Boniface going deep. Here's Andino looking up the inside. It's going to work out, or is it? He will make it stick for now. In fact, no, he won't, because Boniface comes back at him on the inside here instead of a 3. It's going to be a switch back and forth. That's going to give Miller plenty of breathing room now to chase after Pallet and Gel as they come on through left hook and in towards the right-hander. Andino there went for the move, thought he made it count, and then suddenly Boniface came right back at him there and said, no, it hasn't. But all the drivers heading upwards and up towards turn 7, 8 and 9. These drivers all enjoying a good run, and that's before you consider as well some phenomenal driving from other drivers up and down the field. And in fact, when you look there to Barry Wenman, your 4th place run in the Evo class, and well, the reason why we want to give him a big mention is because you have to keep in mind that he started a long way down this order after a dismal race number 1, in the fact that he started all the way down in 34th, and he has found his way all the way into 18th place overall, or 4th place in the Evo class. So Wenman there putting on an absolute star performance as he roars his way around. Up towards turn number 1 he goes, and as he does so, well, Wenman right now, I think, knowing that he's not really got anywhere else to chase at this point, because the next Evo driver is Denny Ploger in 3rd of the class, but 12th place overall. So a sizable gap between the two of them of about 4 seconds. Never say never, because that is next up at the inside of Ploger, trying to force a move here for 11th place overall. The Premier driver wants it more, and well, he's going to take it there. Ploger has to back off in the end, as always the two would come to blows. But Nick Stubb right now definitely leaving nothing out in the tank and leaving it all out to the circuit. Stubb right now really demonstrating a phenomenal turn of pace here, despite what happened in race number 1, and we've shown his championship credentials, no doubt about it. But these drivers continue on. We're not too far away now from the final third of the race. We're on lap 12 of 17, and with that we don't have too much left in the distance. And for our drivers now, it really is all going to come down to the fine margins and who they're around at this time. Looking further back, Liam Yaniso, he's close behind Palnier and Mackay. And Mackay here having to do a bit of defensive driving as they make their way off of the apex to turn number 12. Now roaring the way out, there's the Corvette Z06 of Palnier close. Is it close enough to think about a move? Well, it's firmly in the draft here. 2 attempts was the gap as they exited the hairpin. And I think Palnier here is going to pick up an overspeed with the side toe as they roar the way in towards roller coaster very shortly. But which of the two drivers is going to be the braver? Now, Mackay's had the experience of battling with Andrew Fellows previously through here. Holds it this time. Palnier does not force the issue all the way to the apex. But definitely Mackay right now, we feel as though a bit of pressure's growing as they come roaring on down. And well, Yaniso meanwhile be watching this and thinking, okay, what can I do to get involved? And well, right now he's just got to be patient. As meanwhile, George Stone is in the pit lane, I believe. That might be for what will be some repair work to the car. I think Stone's had a bit of an issue, so therefore Stone right now dropping all the way down the order. That's going to promote a number of drivers, and well, you can see there, Palnier once again looking for a move around the outside of Mackay. Mackay goes defensive on the inside, goes a bit deep, as is Palnier. Yaniso now tries to tuck his nose on the inside, can't quite find it, and instead they all stay as they were. But all 3 of these drivers now are already starting to reveal their hands in this game of high-stakes, high-speed poker. But for them, the battle for 11th place in the Premier class with some key points to the board, and they're all eager to make them. But to these drivers from them, well, they do have Barry Wenman getting a little bit closer, but we need to look away from them for a brief moment because John Ludbrook is missing the front of a scuffle with while the other drivers are out there. Has he made contact with George Stone is perhaps one of the questions we're wondering. We don't have any information to suggest he has. In fact, we do need a replay we've got to cut back to very shortly. And Klaas Vellen up the inside immediately there, and the Penguins make the way through. Right now, it's ice cold and cool for Klaas Vellen because that's a smooth move and moves his way up into 6th place or 5th in the Premier class. But will we see Ludbrook come back at him? Well, we're about to find out as they power their way along at the back straight. Ludbrook close, but I think the damage on the front end of that Porsche is costing pace, and indeed Ludbrook's falling backwards, not going forwards and close to his rival. But take a thought and a pause for a moment, because as we do see Tiago Reza getting close to Luke Bailey, well, we do have what is close running between them, but no move on. But we do have a replay to explain what's happened to John Ludbrook and why he's missing a front bumper. And here is that replay. Now this was only moments ago, heading up towards South Bend for Ludbrook, made his way into the aforementioned corner. Oh, the rear of the car lets go, and then he just becomes a passenger in his own car and straight to the barrier there for John Ludbrook, and that explains the story. An unfortunate one for John Ludbrook. He'll be absolutely fuming about that one, but no sign of what's happened to George Stone there, so I wonder whether it's a separate incident. Well, either way, we return to your live racing. And as we do, well, there is Ludbrook having to try and keep now Thiago Reza behind him as these two continue to fight. We're on lap 14 of 17. And we have just got a bit of confirmation there from Job Berry in the YouTube chat, a 40-second penalty for George Stone, and that, I believe, will be for not serving a slowdown potentially. Alternatively, could it be for instant points picked up? Well, either way, that explains what's happened to Stone and put him a long way down. And was he dropped down the order, others have gained to their advantage. Albeit now everybody queuing up behind Ludbrook here. Thiago Reyes is the driver who needs to fight his way through sooner rather than later. Luke Bailey, we look in his rearview mirrors right now and thinking, okay, I'm clear of all this. Reza goes up the inside. Ludbrook doesn't fight it too hard here, and here comes Nick Stubb. Looks up the inside. Ludbrook squeezes the door at him, but Stubbs is able to be there, and as a result forces the door back open. It's the equivalent of trying to stick his foot in the closing door, and well, right now it's going to hurt a little bit, but for Nick Stubb, the early pain is going to be worth the long-term gain as he'll pass his way around the outside of Ludbrook. Here comes Ploger as well. They're all passing the damaged car-made GP2 Porsche machine as they head in towards Roller Coaster Bend. Oh my good lord, and that's Mark De Vries thinking about going free wide there for a brief moment. I thought he was going to lunge it around the other side of Kostrich and Ludbrook, and I was going to say that's not going to work from that far back, but in the end he was just teasing it and trying to get Kostrich to outbrake himself, but we thought he could have gone either which way from them. Well, we've also got a bit of battling going on further up the field, and we do have James Bostock under pressure now for Jonathan Berry. Well, the man who right now is leader of Evo, once more he wants the lead of the overall race, and he wants to become an overall winner, but it's going to be James Bostock has to try and keep him at bay. Bostock goes very deep there through left hook, and that is going to put him on the compromise line. Berry, they're so close right now, looking for an opportunity, and behind them, Matthias Smolny and Mark Johnson also started to scrap. So this overall podium is far from settled here as they head into the closing stages of this race. We're not long away. We've got this lap plus two more, but the top four right now so close together and all itching and biting at each other, but roaring the way onwards and in towards turns 11 and 12. Well, right now, Bostock and Berry are running off with this, and Jonathan Berry looks around the outside there. That is to try and get Bostock to go defensive, and Berry to carry a lot more momentum out the corner, but can't quite find it. He loses the rear of the car. Jonathan Berry goes round, and that's on the lead of the Evo class. Surely not. Surely he's not throwing this away, because if he has, he's going to be absolutely fuming. He gets it immediately back on the tarmac there. If he'd gone any deeper in the grass, I don't think he would have come back. He had plenty of time, but that goes to show there's Berry off in the distance. He may look like an ant right now, but he's that far up the road, and Thiago Reza has been able to close it considerably as a result of Berry's spin. That's going to give some hope there to the rest of the Evo class that he might be able to bring Berry down to earth, but Jonathan Berry there pushing absolutely as hard as possible, only to go around right in the closing stages. It's going to be a slight bruise, but no more than to his ego, and understandable there. He was pushing hard, he wanted the win, and it went a little bit around on him, but still that Evo win now, he'll be calming it down. And well, if I know Jonathan, I know him very well, he loves going racing for even the highest of positions, even if he doesn't need to, but he also knows when to back it off, and he'll do exactly that now. He is a smart racer out there, but just pushed a little bit too high like Icarus to the sun. But right now, speaking of bright things, here's a bright battle going on between the second and third place of Smolny versus Mark Johnson, and roaring the one around in towards a left hook this time. Well, now you can see Mark Johnson has come alive a little bit in this race after being really quite placid over the opening 14 laps or so. He's now starting to bare his fangs a little bit and is looking to try and steal away that second place from Matthias Smolny. However, we'll have to see where he's going to be able to do so, because of the fact, on the straights at least, that Porsche looks to be the faster car. It's on the corners that McLaren seems to have a bit of an advantage. Very interesting the setups that some drivers have taken here today to the VR circuit. We've normally seen this season that a lot of drivers going for very similar setups, perhaps just one or two differences in the rear wing. But it does seem as though some drivers have invested purely for the straights and the traction zones. Meanwhile, other drivers have gone, right, all the investment is in the corners, forget about the straights. And well, we'll have to see how exactly it's going to play out here, but right now that Porsche in second place is looking blazingly quick. It does have the toe of Bostock, to be fair, but also Smolny here just looks to be safe as they roar the way up towards turns 13 and 14. But through at the left into right here, no difference at the moment between them. Further down the order, have we got any battles ongoing? We do have some close-knit battles. We're going to quickly pan to one of them. Rob Smith here, chasing after Oliver Falstrom, as they're both going to go around the outside of Alan Baker. I think serving a slowdown. Baker was going to immediately come back after serving it and stick himself right on the inside of Rob Smith there. And I think Rob right now is going to be going, Adam, what on earth is going on? And well, I think Adam Baker serving the slowdown and decided, well, the door's open, I might as well go for it again. Also in at the Evo class here, Andy Chell and Grant Miller, they're still fighting as our leaders have gone on to the final lap. And it is going to be very little between the two of them in their fight for 9th place in the Evo class. But Chell holding on at the moment, at least in this race. But as they make their way down the back straight, we come a little bit further up and we look to Luke Bailey here. Still in 7th place overall, 6th in the Premier class. He's got Tiago Reza right behind him and still holding a long queue of cars behind, because you've got Reza, Stubb, Ploger, Kostrich and De Vries there before a 3-second gap to Rob Mackay. And well, no change between these drivers at this time. They all seem to be staying together, and Luke Bailey, credit where it's due, has put on a very strong performance here. The third place man in the Premier Championship. He may not be in third after today, given the results have gone to his rivals by comparison, but Bailey right now definitely putting on another solid performance as he makes his way onwards. And well, if Stubb can get close enough, I think he'll look for the move on Reza, but he won't have enough time to attack Bailey here, and I think that's going to be a bit frustrating to the Dutchman, albeit we will see what he can do. Denny Ploger will be hoping that Stubb does go for a move on Reza to bring Ploger closer to his second place rival in the Evo class, but at least for now things are static. What's also looking to be a bit less static here, James Bostock leading by 3/10. They head in towards Roller Coaster. This is your top three, and on the final lap we're staying with them to the end now, because Bostock, he's chasing that first win of the season, and as he comes down that Roller Coaster, Smolny was close but not close enough. I think this is only going one way, ladies and gentlemen, and with Johnson watching behind, out of hog pen they come, and as they do for James Bostock, it's been a long time coming this season, but as he heads towards the line, the Carme GP2 driver sees the checker flag, and for Bostock, it's brilliant. It's victory here at VII, race 2 of the day, ahead of Matthias Smolny and Mark Johnson, and all Premier top 3. It will then be Martin Kenyon who finishes in 4th place, ahead of your Evo class winner, Jonathan Berry. He may have had a spin, but it hasn't taken away his class win in 5th overall. We'll then have Klaas Vellen in 6th place, ahead of Luke Bailey, who did very well, as Nick Stubb just outpaces Tiago Reza to the line. Reza will take 2nd place in Evo ahead of Denny Ploger. That completes your top 10. Scott Kostrich was a length ahead of Mark De Vries, Rob Mackay, Robin Paunier and Liam Yaniso round off your top 15. Barry Wenman from 34th on the grid finishes in 16th, 4th place in the Evo class. John Ludbrook was behind in 17th, and then we've still got some finishes to come, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see them all to the line as they all come through. And well, there you're going to see Ryan Abbott's coming across in 23rd, ahead of Oliver Forstrom, who brings on home one of his best performances of the season, 7th place in Evo. And well, I believe from them we've got Grant Miller in a drag race line versus Andy Chell. Who's it going to be? Will it be Chell? Will it be Miller? It is going to be Chell, who just holds off Miller for 9th place in the Evo class, 29th on the road, and Robin Aston behind in 31st, watching it all unfold. And the last of your finishers on the lead lap is Pete Piver, ladies and gentlemen, who takes 37th or 24th in the Premier class. Well, goodness me, what a second race, carrying on from where we left off in race number 1. But for James Bostock, a bit of a tactical call, I think, to slip down the order towards the end of race number 1, given he was quite high up in the field, but I think he focused on the points across the 2 races. And for Bostock, he didn't have it easy. He had Matthias Smolny, Mark Johnson and also Jonathan Berry breathing down his neck every lap over the distance, but James Bostock has finally congratulated him, and Mark Johnson follows behind there. But 3 stars of the field today, and we'll mention there to Mark Johnson as well. A bit in the background, but a 3rd place, a well-deserved podium at that. But as all the drivers make the way on towards the pit lane, let's take a look at the scenic view and with those race results subject to any steward's inquiries. And here they are, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, our tape does run out there at the brief moment. Indeed, the VHS tape that was supplied to us, it's run out of life, but we haven't run out of results as everything goes static. And let's take you through those race results subject to any steward's inquiries. And here they are. So after a brilliant 2 30-minute races today, on our second race in particular, we got to see James Bostock take victory overall for Carme GP2 Racing by 4 attempts at line over Mission R Esports. for Matthias Smolny. In third, it was Mark Johnson for Axis Simsports Ice, and he was just ahead of his teammate Martin Kenyon, so not quite a double podium, but a double top 5 for the team in this one, and well done to them. And from our Premier podium finishers and 4th place Premier driver, we then came to our 5th place overall finisher, Evo winner, Jonathan Berry for Mission R powered by Mords, and an absolutely deserved Evo win. And in fact, I do believe as a result, back-to-back class wins there for Jonathan Berry here today at VIR. He absolutely delivered, no doubt about it. But from Jonathan Berry, in 6th was Class Vellum. We have the Penguin Racing Endeavours drivers there enjoying one of his strongest performances of the season, and we have seen a very different Class Velen here today, and I do hope we get to see more of it because he's been looking very feisty in the number 187, and if he keeps this up, he's going to be looking to be a bit of a late contender in the Premier Championship, but you never know. Luke Bailey, 7th there for Glass Tech Racing, ahead of his teammate Nick Stubb, and well done to Nick Stubb for recovering from race number 1 from outside the top 30 all the way to an 8th place finish here in race number 2. That is commitment. He was ahead of Tiago Reza, your run-up in the Evo class for 9 Pegasus Pantera, and Denny Ploger round off your top 10 there with 3rd place in the Evo class at MJK Sim Racing. Now, we have spoken about both of our podiums in our classes, but let's finish the overall top 15, and best the rest in 11th was Scott Kostrich for Carme GP2 Racing, ahead by only 2 tenths of Mark De Vries for Sim Racing Team Lowlands, with Rob Mackay finishing 13th for Dexterous Motorsport Zemix, enjoying some fantastic battling over the course of the race today, and picking up some good points as a result. Robin Powney was 14th for Sim Coach after a dismal start to the race. It's not about how you start, it's about how you finish, and he definitely demonstrated that. And Liam Uniso, 15th there, the privateer. And there was Barry Wemman, who was 16th ahead of John Ludborough, Andrew Fellows, Daniel Paul and Ross Norsworthy to complete your top 20. And looking to the bottom end of the tower for the overall results, well, what we got to see the last of your lead lap finishers was Pete Piver in 37th for LSR Racing in the Ford Mustang. It was a lap down to both Sammy Ariba and Austin Graff. 5 laps down, but classified as a finisher for James Pallett, even though he did have the retirement for Racing League Hub. And then non-finishes there for George Stone, James Fraser, Steve Rubino, Robert Savage, Andrew Montine, Matthew Hunter, Jordan Maymar, Eddie Theobald, and the non-start there for Dean Sheasby. But coming on to the individual class finishing positions, and this is where all the points are scored, of course. And as we got to see James Bostock, your winner there in Premier by 4 tenths over Matthias Smolny, with Mark Johnson a further 3 tenths behind. Well done to the Premier podium finishers, and Martin Kenyon was 4 seconds off from being part of that podium. But from the Axis Simsport Ice driver, he had a comfortable 11 seconds advantage there over Class Velen, with the Penguin Racing Endeavours driver really keeping the rest of the field at bay. Speaking of which, it was Luke Bailey in 6th ahead of Nick Stubb, with Scott Kostrich, Mark De Vries, and Rob Mackay rounding off the Premier top 10. Robin Powney was 11th there, only a 10th behind at the finish line, not quite having enough grunt to get ahead, but still ahead of Liam Uniso, and the BMW driver who looked strong all day. Unfortunately, bad luck continued to come his way. John Ludbrook was 13th, minus a front bumper, but the Carme GP2 Racing driver was 6 seconds clear of Andrew Fellows, but the Flatline Racing driver being followed up by Simcast Racing Team UK's Ross Norsworthy. Simon Hunt took 16th there for Quatermass Motorsport, but was 4 tenths clear of Wesley Van Rens, with Adam Baker, Rob Smith and Stuart Rice round off your top 20, and then it was Robin Aston and Menno Blown 21st and 22nd. With behind them then, we came to Hussein Sarakadesla and Pete Piver, who rounded off the Premier finishing order on the lead lap. It was a classified finish, 25th for James Pallett, and then it was non-finishes for George Stone and Andrew Montaigne, with a non-start for Dean Sheasby. And coming on to the Evo class, last but by no means least, here we can see we did see Jonathan Berry for Mission R, powered by Maud, taking victory by 7 seconds. And well, what a drive from him ahead of Tiago Reza for 9 Pegasus Pantera. And well, a comfortable win in the end for Jonathan Berry, and again getting himself back onto the centre stage for the Evo Championship. Tiago Reza, a 2nd place there, and some oh goodness me, as I stumble over my words, some important points scored from the driver, the number 93 there, back on fine form ahead of Denny Ploger, who after his absolutely brilliant result at Spa-Francorchamps, we were wondering whether it was a one-time thing. Well, the MJK Sim Racing driver demonstrated it's not a one-time thing. He's now definitely a championship threat. Off of the podium was Barry Wenman with a motivated drive for Dexterous Motorsports Quamar, ahead of Daniel Paul for Flatline Racing. That was your Evo top 5. A further 7 seconds behind was Ryan Abbott for Team Nubish, ahead of Oliver Forstrom, and the Quatermass Motorsport driver enjoying his best result of the season with that 7th place. Well done to him. Ahead of Matt Stace for Flatline Racing, with Andy Chell and Grant Miller rounding off your Evo top 10. Behind the QMS Motorsport Bravo and Phoenix Racing Red drivers, it was a length for Alex Boniface for Dexterous Motorsport Zemex, who put on a great battle between himself and Eduardo and Dino. And then from the Argentine driver for LS Racing, it was the Englishman at Blue Sky Esports' Rachel Hugh, who was the last lead lap finishers. It was a lap down for Sammy Ariba and Austin Graff for Michelin and Axis and Sport Ice respectively. And then we did have the retirements of James Fraser, Steve Rubino, Robert Savage, Matthew Hunter, Jordan Maymar, and Eddie Theobald. So that completes your rundown of the provisional results, ladies and gentlemen. And well, unfortunately, we will not have time to bring you what will be post-round interviews today, given we are so far away from when the race occurred. And I can imagine that a good number of our drivers may not recall how it all played out. So we're not going to have interviews today. What we are instead going to do, we are going to give you a recap of the championships after these rounds are complete. But give us a brief moment. We'll be right back in about 60 seconds to give you that breakdown of the championships as they stand after this round, at least provisionally. So we do return, ladies and gentlemen, and let's give you a breakdown then of the championship standings provisionally after 5 rounds as we conclude the first half of the season. We start off then with the Premier Class standings, and with 2 non-starts today, Dean Sheasby right now continues to lead, but his advantage, it has been slashed completely to only 3 points over James Bostock, whose win in race number 2 made up for his 12th place in race number 1, and now means that he is right on the heels of the championship leader. Between them, it's then a further 41 points till you get to Matthias Smolny, who with that second place finish in the second race of the day, added to an 8th place, moves back into 3rd ahead of Luke Bailey, who seemed to struggle today. The Glass Tech Racing driver sits in 4th. Rowan Pownier, not the way he wanted it to go here in race number 2, but race number 1 was important. It puts him 5 points behind in 5th, but only at 13 points ahead of John Ludbrook, who sits now in 6th. Mark De Vries is 7th on 192 points, with Mark Johnson 15 points behind, but a huge haul of points brings him right into the top 10, ahead of Nick Stubb, who with a dogged performance takes 9th, and then Liam Yaniso. Well, he looked to fret today, but the results did not back up the fret he pitched. He sits in 10th on 165 points, 9 ahead of Menno Bloem, with George Stone round off the Premier top 12. Coming to the Evo class, and here we can see Jordan Maymar, well, a non-finish in race 2, and was a second place finish in race number 1. It does mean he still leads, but by only 8 points over Tiago Reiser, who has closed the gap. Denny Ploger as well. Look how this top 3 is compressing together, and now it's only the best part of 29 points between the top 3 here, and well, it's anybody's guess. In fact, it's only 19 points if I could do my mathematics this Sunday afternoon. But Denny Ploger now in 3rd for MJK Sim Racing, and we have got a title hunt on. And that's before you consider Jonathan Berry with back-to-back wins. He now moves to 4th on 285 points, and that top 4 so close together you could cut the tension with a knife. Steve Rubino for Hobo Racing, anonymous in race number 2, and a 7th place in race number 1 means he falls to 5th on 224, only 7 ahead of Grant Miller, who seems to be coming back into the fight, with Robert Savage, Austin Graff, Barry Wemmen and Ryan Abbott's round off a very close top 10 in the second half of the field, and right now it's anybody's guess how they're all going to stand after next week's round, with Owen Seward in 11th, not in the grid today, and Daniel Paul moves to 12th for Flatline Racing at 147 points. As for the team's championship, well, RDSA Esports may have been leading coming into this round, but now they fall into 2nd, and Mission Art Esports have taken the lead only by 14 points. Meanwhile, RDSA Esports, they will feel comfortable in 2nd, knowing they've got a fight, as our top 2 teams are starting to break away a little bit, with 48 points between them and then SimCoach in 3rd. It's a further 13 points to Altitude at 3M Esports, who sit in 4th, but ahead of Dexterous Motorsport ORA, who sit in 5th. And then we do have outside the top 5 from the 567 points of Dexterous Motorsport, you do have their Kame GP2 on 562 in 6th, and they only have a slender advantage over Vulcan Motorsports, who seem to be up and down like a seesaw this season. They fall all the way to 7th from 3rd place coming into this round, but they're still ahead of Simcast Racing Team UK, with Phoenix Racing and Glass Tech Racing rounding off your team's top 10. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to be on the grid at Evolution Sim Racing, well, of course, we have plenty of series which you may be interested in, both ongoing and upcoming. We have our GT3 Championship, which runs every Thursday, which you've been tuning into today. We also do have on Sundays, to conclude as of tonight, and indeed, if you're looking for more entertainment, stick around on the Evolution Sim Racing YouTube channel, because in approximately what will be 2 to 3 hours time, we will have the season finale of the European GT Championship due to unfold, and that is going to be in the very capable hands, I believe, of James Bostock and also Darren Thacker presenting that. And coming up on Sundays as well, in only a week's time, we do have the commencement of the pre-season event of the America's GT Challenge. Or, if you're looking for something else on Sundays, we do have the Danny Lee Porsche Cup, as brought to you by Danny Lee and GT Omega in collaboration with Evolution Sim Racing. And as always, if you don't want to pay to be on the grid, we do have the free-to-join Practice League that runs on Tuesday evenings and Saturday afternoons. There's plenty going on Evolution Sim Racing, and to be on track with us, join the official Discord. Indeed, you can use the invite link available on screen or the QR code. We'd also like to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, including Trophy AI, the title sponsor of our GT3 Championship, Carme, Modern Technology, SimCoach, where you can unlock your true potential, GP2 Group, and also Motorsport UK's esports division, who continue to recognise us here at Evolution Sim Racing as a recommended community, and we're very grateful for that continued recognition. But ladies and gentlemen, then attention turns to what will be less than a week's time, given up when we've broadcasted this race, and we will be, for the second half of the season, kicking things off at the Mazzano World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli. It'll be round at number 6, and you can tune in live as all the racing action unfolds on Thursday, the 31st of July, 2025. A circuit more synonymous with motorbikes and race on 2 wheels, but how will it go for our drivers when they take to it on 4 wheels? You'll have to tune in to find out. But until then, we've been Evolution Sim Racing, and this has been your Split Breed broadcast, and I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, much like our drivers, remember to stay on track. Good night.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.